No.
If you happen to need to get up, please.
This conference will now be recorded.
What traits?
If you need to get up and move around, please put your mask on.
We're live.
All right, fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. I call the goal-setting workshop of the Town Commission on June 1st, 2020 at 2 p.m. to order. Pursuant to the Executive Order 20-69 issued by the Office of the Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20, 2020, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Section 20.54(5)(b)(2), Florida statutes. Procedures for public comment will be explained by the town clerk shortly. The member of the Town Commission appearing remotely for this meeting is Commissioner Phil Bessler. Clerk Armstrong, please provide information about this virtual meeting.
The agenda, the materials for each item on the agenda, and the notice regarding the virtual meeting were made available beginning May 27, 2020 on the town's website, and is also available in the town clerk's office during business hours. The public was given the opportunity to submit public comments to the town clerk prior to the meeting. The town has developed several new methods in sharing public comment for a virtual meeting. Any persons may be heard by the Town Commission through teleconference and upon registering with the town clerk pursuant to the published notice to speak for not more than 3 minutes on any item on the agenda. Since this is a virtual meeting as authorized by the Governor of the State of Florida, members of the public wishing to address the body may do so by the town clerk will unmute the public once the mayor calls for public comment. Persons interested in speaking may speak up to voice their public comment. Do not unmute your physical phone until you are ready to make a comment. Remute your phone once you have completed your comment. Persons who cannot access the meeting by teleconferencing using a computer with speaker capability or through a smart application can call Town Hall at 561-732-2635 and notify a Town Hall staff of their public comment. The Town Hall staff will notify the town clerk, who shall read the public comment into record. These public comment options established for the virtual Town Commission meeting comply with Section 286.0114 and Section 120.54 Florida statutes. The public that is physically present for the Town Commission meetings may participate in public comment by coming up to the podium. Those that wish to place a public comment using the podium but are currently located in the patio, please proceed to enter the chambers one at a time from the side door that has the open sign on a yellow paper. The podium will be immediately to the right once you have entered the chambers from the side door. Facial covering must be worn at all times and only removed to speak into the microphone. A town hall staff will disinfect the podium after each use between speakers. Town of Ocean Ridge has a facial covering requirement and also encourages the public to practice social distance. All chairs within Town Hall have been measured to comply with the 6 feet social distance requirement. No-touch hand stations have been placed next to the podium and as well as next to the entrance doors of Town Hall. Tips for virtual meeting. Try to use one device. Do not attend the meeting by using both the computer and the telephone at the same time, as you will experience feedback with a strong echo and will not be able to hear the participants of the meeting properly. Mute your phone. If you're attending by telephone or computer, those that do not mute their phones can cause disruption into the meeting. Do not unmute yourself. If you are attending by GoToMeeting, the application, or a computer, please do not unmute yourself. The town clerk will unmute persons after public comment is called by the mayor. If you have physically muted your phone, please unmute only after public comment is called for and town clerk has alerted the public to unmute. The information in the chat box is a public record. Call Town Hall if you're experiencing technical difficulties.
Wow. Okay, Clerk Armstrong, would you please call roll?
Commissioner Bessler.
Here.
Vice Mayor Koss.
Here.
Mayor DeHassett.
Present.
Commissioner Herbert.
Here.
Commissioner Vichalek.
Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm gonna miss
We'll
that.
get this.
Welcome, public. It's good to see you. It's actually very nice to have chambers back open. So I would now like to open the floor for public comment.
I did not receive any via email prior to the meeting, and nobody has yet to place any public comment on the chat box. But I will go ahead and unmute just in case if somebody has a public comment.
Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none at this time, let's move on to action items. Presentation of the proposed fiscal year 21 budget. Town Manager Stevens, can you please advise?
Thank you. I present to you the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget. My primary objective is to present a budget plan that is within the legal framework established by state law while taking into consideration the goals of the Town Commission and addressing the operational needs of the community. This budget continues enhanced maintenance activity to our stormwater systems and critical drainage infrastructure projects prioritized by the Town Commission, along with a focus on fire hydrant maintenance, while also maintaining our landscape maintenance program as well as the town's current level of service for public safety. At the goal-setting workshop in May, the Town Commission heard from residents and staff and committed to funding other priority capital improvement projects as described on the capital items listing before you. Revenue projections are conservative this year in anticipation of a recession due to the pandemic. While it is the Town Commission and management's priority to retain our current personnel and level of service, many other expenditures have been decreased in anticipation of decreased revenues, with details included in the narratives for each department. The overall projected budget expenditures of $8.3 million are calculated at a flat 5.35 mill rate, assuming a 97% collection rate for ad valorem taxes and utilization of reserves in the amount of $796,936 to balance the budget. There are several items in the budget that will need to be adjusted as rates are received, such as our workers' comp and general liability insurance and retirement rates from FRS. Other items of discussion include legal services and also to talk about the capital items again. I'd like to turn it over to the Town Commission at this time for discussion and further direction to incorporate into the next version of the proposed budget, which will come out for the July budget meeting.
Okay, so obviously the first two pages that you gave us that need to be replaced under our first tab, revenue expenses, is a new statement of
Yes.
revenues and
yes.
expenditures?
Mhm. Yes, I handed out several different sheets, and the reason why you were receiving these sheets is because during our meetings with staff and commissioners to review certain items in the budget, one of the commissioners noticed that there were two items in the capital budget that were very similar, which was the Tropical and Woolbright pump stations. So what we did there was we reduced that amount by $20,000. What happened was our Public Works Director had put in a request, and then the town engineer had put in another request, and it was kind of the same request, not the same amount, but the same request. So we
Okay.
have taken $20,000 out of number 7 of your capital.
Okay, could you go ahead and walk us through where all these others go, so we'll just get them in there right now?
Yes, so the revenue and expenditure sheet goes under your revenue and expenditure tab. And then your second sheet, which is your statement of revenues. You'll just keep turning the pages there. You'll see 3 charts.
Hang on, you've lost me. My next piece of paper is General Fund number 001, revenues, in my stack.
Okay, so, right, so your revenues goes, it's under the same tab, but keep turning your pages.
Gotcha. Towards the back.
Mm-hmm.
There's a narrative that says revenues and then the next 3 pages, correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, hang on.
And you have a brand-new sheet, the reserve fund analysis, that you can put anywhere you'd like in the book, but I would suggest you would put it near your mill rates, under your mill rates tab.
So the capital fund statement of revenues and expenditures goes in a different section? Or
That
goes in
one-
this section
That's the
too?
first page there. So if you, under your revenue and expenditure tab, that's your first page. Statement of revenues and expenditures. Yeah, that's your
General
first page there.
Correct, so there's three that are general fund, and then there's one that's a capital fund. Where does the capital fund?
Capital is in the back of the book, under your capital tab.
Very back.
There's a narrative, and then you'll see your capital budget. There are 3 pages there. You have your capital budget, and then you have your capital items listing, and then you have your 5-year capital plan. Those all go there in that tab.
Are they replacing?
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
There it is.
The
Cap.
reason why you have so many pages to change is when I change one little figure of 20,000, it populates a lot of different pages in your budget.
Right.
Okay. As long as it's going in the right direction, I'm okay with that. All right.
302, 302.
Okay. Town Manager Stevens, could you just walk us through, it's very self-evident, but for those that are on the phone and listening in, the reserve fund analysis that you did, taking us from holding steady on a 5.35 mill rate, and if you could just go over the amounts needed from reserve depending upon whether we use a 97 all the way scaling up to a 97.5% basis. I think that would be helpful to start the discussion.
Right, so the items that are yellow on your sheet is the current amount that is needed for reserves. So you see the first column there, you have the current mill rate, which is 5.35, and then it's reduced down to 5.34, 5.33, all the way down to 5.25. So with that, it's going to tell you if you change what we're doing here and you want to change your mill rate from 5.35 down to 5.25, it's telling you here at a 97% collection rate, you would then need 903,178 from your reserves instead of the 796, 936 that is currently in the budget. So as you reduce your mill rate, the amount from reserves increases.
Right.
But then as you move over into, so we calculate at 97% right now. If you want to change that and you now want to say, okay, let's change that assumption to 97.5% collection rate for ad valorem, then at a 5.35, the amount you need from reserves goes down to 767,638. And then you go over another column, and then it will tell you, or 2 columns, then it will tell you if we change that assumption to 98% collection rate, it goes down further to 738,340. And then all the way to 98.5, which is the collection rate we're using for this current fiscal year, FY20, it tells you at that point that you would need reserves of $709,041.
Okay. I'd like to start with Vice Mayor Cos. You were the one that had suggested that we take a look at this, and rightfully so. Having seen these numbers now, what's your reaction between the 97 and up to the 90?
I think 97.5. We jumped it to 98.5. And I think maybe the compromise is 97.5 for this year. And then remember, we can always take another look at it down the road. We don't have to lock it in until when?
You don't have to lock
August
it
or
in until
something?
September.
Yeah.
August, September.
I mean, you have to lock in your mill rate next month.
Yes.
You don't have
Right.
to lock in your percentage collection until September.
Correct, and so everybody understands what happens is if we actually collect more taxes, we end up collecting 99% of our taxes, that additional monies go into the general fund.
Yes, it
Correct.
goes into the general reserve, yes.
It goes into the general reserve.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So the idea, just for the public, was that we need just in case we need a cushion because people fall on hard financial times and can't afford to pay their taxes, basically.
Okay.
And can I speak to that?
Actual number is though, from
Yep.
last year?
Yep, I can tell you exactly what it was.
What is the actual percentage?
I have the numbers here. Okay, so for okay, I go back to last year. Okay, so last year we collected 98.2% of our ad valorem. The year prior to that, in FY 18, we collected 99.4%. FY 17, 99.5, and FY 16, 99.6. Now, where we are potentially going into a recession, that's where you want to start dropping your percentages just a
Sure.
little bit because you don't know what's going to happen. And I had spoken to the property appraiser last week, and she told us to be very cautious and do exactly what we're doing now and be conservative with the revenue projections because we do not know what will happen to the VAB data or the markets, and we won't know that until after the start of this coming fiscal year. And then also, we don't know what's going to happen with the Value Adjustment Board because they may allow some dispensations due to the COVID-19.
Do we have data dating back to 2008, 2007?
We have
2009?
we have some data.
Just to compare what we're possibly facing from history,
From the recession then?
you know, and if 2009, if there was a sharp drop in
There was.
percentages
Ability to
collected,
collect.
I mean, not just the percentages of ad valorem taxes, but the percentages collected.
Right, that's the important.
So I looked back to see, but I couldn't find certain data. I can find all of the budgets that we have, but I couldn't find the revenue and expenditure reports that we had, so. I can tell you what we had budgeted. I can't really tell you what the percentage collected was back then.
I agree with you, and I wish that information were readily available.
I mean,
Because-
we might be able to dig through boxes and find it, it's just not on the computer system.
I just think erring on the side of conservatism and caution is good here, so.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't feel comfortable doing more than 97.5, probably.
Going higher?
No, I wouldn't feel comfortable going higher than
No,
that.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right,
97.5 is
Yeah,
because the times were.
comfortable.
yeah.
Yeah.
And since there's very few things that we can actually do with this budget, given some of the restrictions, I wanted to just discuss the assumption again while we're on it of the 5.35 and to see if anybody had any changes of opinion or any questions or wanted to revisit the millage at this point before we jump into the nitty-gritty of some of the expenditures.
Speaking for myself, I mean, obviously you can draw the line between, we have a base right now of 97% at 5.35. If you look over to the 97.5 that we would take on, you could technically drop the millage rate by 0.03 or 0.04 in order to be in the same numbers level. But I personally would keep the millage rate at where it is, just to make sure that we have the money for the capital expenditures that we need to have for this year, for this coming year.
I think it's doable as well. I mean, I think it's doable as well where we are,
Yeah.
because I think it's a negligible difference. Sounds more than it really is in the big picture.
We have to be conservative with, just with the
Our intake
amount
as
of
well.
money that we're going to collect, because we don't know where our property values will come in September.
Correct. May I ask that both of you, when you speak, that you address yourself, just so people on the phone,
All right.
in case they haven't figured out our.
And also just make sure to be a little closer to the microphone, because some people have saying that you guys have been in and out.
Pick it up, Martin.
So,
Go ahead.
just to clarify, traditionally for years, we were at 98.5. And then I think it was 2 years ago where we bumped it down.
97.
Actually, it was
Excuse
the-
me, bumped it up.
It
It
was
was
the
the
opposite.
opposite, Steve.
Excuse me,
For
yeah.
many, many years, it was
90
97,
and then we bumped it.
it to 98.5 last
Right.
year.
Sure.
Yep.
May I add something?
Please.
Phil Bessler.
Yes, please.
I think if you look at this, back to that question about, whether we want to raise taxes, lower taxes, whatever. If you look at this globally, this budget, you're going to see 4 issues that make up the $800,000 shortfall that we have. The first one you're talking about now, whether we use 97 or 98.5, and that's $88,000. So that's kind of the minimum of the 4 issues that we're really dealing with. If you look at our revenue, and without the real estate taxes in it, we dropped like $362,000. So that's going to be our major issue that we're dealing with. But the problem with that is that's not under our control. That's, the 1% sales tax, the interest income. I think Martin talked about last meeting we had. It was going to be $70,000 this year. Next year we've got budgeted $26,000, but that's because of the interest rate, and we have no control over that interest rate. So that $362,000 is a big number. I think the good news is, though, it's not a long-term number. Eventually, the economy is going to go back. One of the reasons the big drop is the coronavirus. People aren't spending the money, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something that if we have to pull from reserves to take that, it's not like we're going to be pulling from reserves every year. Eventually, that number is going to come back and be strong again. The next issue is last year, and I don't know what the actual number will be, but we actually budgeted about a $286,000 shortfall. So that's another number that's going to roll into this year because we started out in a hole, basically.
So Commissioner Bessler,
Last issue.
Commissioner Bessler, before you go on, I had asked what it was looking like, what would be rolling into reserves or being rolling out of reserves at the end of our fiscal year. And because we have a $105,000 bump coming from FEMA, Town Manager Stevens felt that at the end of the year that we would probably be at a wash. So we may not be looking at that $284,000 deficit that you're talking about.
Yeah, and if I may,
Okay, well,
sorry, if I may.
that would be great because then, I'm sorry, am I interrupting somebody?
Yeah, it's me, Phil, Tracy. And if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Trish.
That's okay. That's going to depend, we have some open positions too, so that could help to maybe put a little bit back into the reserves. It's going to depend on how much we have expended for COVID-19 expenditures this year, and also if we have a hurricane this fiscal year.
So this is Steve Coss. I went through this with Tracy at length, and Tracy hates when the commissioners do this to her, but I'll do it anyway. At the end of the year, with a little bit of luck, come September 30th, we're going to have about $300,000 to put into reserve. So if you look at this figure, $767,000 that we're requesting out of reserves, you can really subtract, and this is being
Okay.
generous, you can subtract 300 from that because we're taking from reserve, but on the other hand, we're putting 300-ish into
I
reserve.
need to explore that 300,000 because my understanding was
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, no, and I don't know if it's going to be 300,000. We got
Correct.
105 from FEMA, but like I said, like what I was just saying was, we don't know how much the COVID-19 expenditures are going to cost us, and we don't know if we're gonna have a hurricane. If we do, then I can't tell you that we're gonna put any reserves back in this year, because it will
But-
be really, really close, because we are losing a lot in revenues right now.
But I thought the cost of a hurricane, let's say one hurricane, was not going to be north of 50,000,
It depends. Hurricane Irma was 105,000.
105?
Yeah, so it all depends on the severity of the hurricane, how long staff has to be here. It depends.
And then there's the 2-year lag to getting any FEMA reimbursement. I think for us, and the way that I think about it, is that we need to look at this budget going from a zero base, not anticipating that we're gonna have roll-in funds into the reserve, and therefore we're more comfortable taking more out of the reserve. I think we need to go in from a zero net basis and look at this as a standalone. And you're right, Commissioner Bessler, there's only 3 or 4 variables. And truthfully, if we could back end them, if we say, this is the collection rate that we're all comfortable with, this is the mill rate to start with that we're all comfortable with, and this is the amount that we would be comfortable taking out of reserves. If you gave those 3 variables to the town manager, then it's up to them to figure out what to cut. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
So we're
No,
making.
I agree. My point was, though, I think this is not a long-term issue. These issues are kind of just blips in our life, and that's why I'm not against taking out $800,000 if we have to, because I don't see it taking $800,000 a year for the rest of our times without raising taxes, so to speak. So I don't, all I'm saying is it's a big number, but I'm willing to go with it.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, Phil, this is Tracy, I think what you're saying is it's a big number, but it's not going to stay like that. The reason why it's a big number is because of the COVID and our reduction in our revenues.
Right, it's like dominoes.
Correct.
One hit the other one, but we can't
But-
expect that to be continual, so therefore we should be able to, down the line, not counting on it, not down the
But-
line, but knowing that this is not going to be the way it will be, as Phil says, every year,
Right,
taking
but
that much out.
The 800,000 figure, let's just call it 800, is scary.
Yeah.
But, and Tracy can't commit to this, but we will have something going into reserves at the end of this fiscal. So,
We always hope for that.
Right.
I
Right.
can't
and it's,
guarantee it.
right.
We work for it.
This is Martin, do we have more money that is requested from FEMA for the other hurricanes?
Yes, we do. We have Hurricane Dorian that we're still processing. It's a very long process to go through.
Would you expect that this would be something that comes into the 21 fiscal budget, possibly?
Possibly. It's going to depend on FEMA and their processes. So they have told us this year that it could be a quicker process due to some things that they've been working on internally. But again, we don't know.
We don't want to rely on it, but there's,
No.
what I'm trying to get to is that, again, that 800,000 number, as scary as it is,
Right.
there is still money that
There's hope.
we can't really account for in this
Right.
budget,
Right.
because we don't know when it's coming and we don't know how much is coming.
Correct. And
Okay,
if
it's
we do
probably
receive
something.
it, then obviously that reserve number goes down
Goes down.
Right.
That's
automatically.
And Mayor DeHasseth, I concur with you, Commissioner Bessler, that this is, these are unprecedented and hopefully not long-living. But if we really hit into a bad depression, we're not getting out in a year. I mean, this is not an in and out. So I think that we need to have the planning assumption that this may be a 2-year, almost 3-year continuation of depletion of reserves. So rather than saying, let's just go ahead and deplete the reserves, let's be very judicious about what we do, because I don't foresee that this is just a 1-year situation, unfortunately. And that's just my personal feeling. I don't have a magic ball or anything.
Yeah, this
No,
is
you're probably right.
Tracy speaking. I think you're right about that, Mayor. If you look back at the crisis we had around 2008, it was a 3-year process for a recession.
Okay.
But it all, it depends on the situation. So this could rebound quickly or it may not. We don't know.
Correct.
Historically, and I've always, this is Martin, I always look at those things historically when we do our analysis for all kinds of investments. That's always, historically speaking, it has to take longer than a year. But at the same time, we know we're not standing at a total, looking down the canyon and not seeing the ground. We know where this is going, and I would, the way that I would approach this budget and the way that I'm looking at this budget basically is try to go as conservative as you can, try to make the reasonable amount of things that need to happen for safety purposes, make those happen, and try to defer things that we can possibly defer and look at expenditures. Just be, conservative about what we're spending, knowing what we're having, and, going from there. But I don't see it as,
This is cause, I agree with Martin. A lot of these items, we can just hit the pause button on. In other words, we want to do them, but we'll hit the pause button until we know whether the COVID comes back in the fall, whether we're in a recession or a depression. The only good news, I would say, is that so far the Ocean Ridge real estate prices have been very strong, the sales. Yeah.
Correct. So if it pleases the board, I think what might be a good next step is to go just quickly through tab by tab to see if there is anything within those tabs that we'd like to discuss. And then obviously the capital expenditure at the very end is where we're really going to spend probably the bulk of our time.
Okay.
Did you want to go ahead and feel how everybody, so we're basically on the 97.5?
Yep.
97.5.
Staying at 5.35?
Yeah, this is Susan. I did not hear anybody say that they weren't
No.
in that.
Commissioner
Got it.
Bessler, is that a comfort level for you, for us, for planning assumptions to go forward with?
Yes, the difference between 97 and 98.5, I think it's just a paper item. So it really isn't kind of a decision. So whatever decision we make doesn't really matter. It's going to come out to what it is. The 5.35 is because I think this isn't long-term problem. Then I want to stay at the 5.35. So I'm neutral about what you guys decide on the 97 and 98.5, but I definitely don't want to raise taxes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's start with, if you could go to your commission tab.
Mayor, can I just, before you go into that, I just want to let you know that the areas that management already made cuts in comparison to last year, I receive department head requests and then I go through everything and I make cuts before you even see it. I made cuts in the areas of training and travel in several departments, vehicle maintenance, repair and maintenance, postage, electricity, phone service, as we're going to be looking into a different service, so we think we can reduce the cost there. Road materials and supplies, operating supplies, printing, office supplies, uniforms, gas and oil, IT, machinery and equipment, other contractual services for the building department. The holiday event was reduced a little bit. Employee recognition program, and some other miscellaneous expenses and contracts. So we already made quite a few cuts based on what we thought we could handle going into the next year. So I just want you to have that information before you start going in.
Thank you. What I hear is that you've already sharpened your pencils.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And you don't want to be poked with it. I got it. All right.
Carla is going to be handing out mail.
Yeah.
Say when it's posted.
That's all right. That works for me. So, Town Commission, any questions or that need to be answered, or any comments on this narrative? I think it's pretty straightforward.
I think so too.
It's the only place we've decreased the budget, so I'm happy with it. Next is Town Manager. For those that are calling in and not seeing the narrative potentially, I want to point out that the Town Manager has made a declaration that she will not accept a salary increase, and so it is not budgeted. So I just want everybody to be aware of that.
Yes, and the reason why I did that obviously is because we're going into very tough budget year, but also because you gave me a substantial raise in this fiscal year, and I don't feel comfortable at all with an additional raise going into a potential recession year. So I will not accept a raise no matter what you do, so.
So why don't we offer you one? This is great.
We sound very good now.
Huge one.
Go ahead, offer me 150, 200, I'm not taking it.
So any other questions that need to be answered in regards to the narrative and the administration expenses on the town manager?
No.
No, I have no questions.
All right, let's go forward with town clerk and treasurer. A minimal increase, mainly from salary and benefits. But it is pretty steady as to where it was last year, a 1.54 increase, so
Right.
there's nothing.
Yeah, and that's, again, based on, you have some raises for your employees there, and also we'll have insurance rates that will go up.
Do we shop that workers' comp, because workers' comp, that raise is quite dramatic at 12%, 13%.
And I have bad news for you, because I just spoke with our insurance agent after the books came out, and it's going up another $15,000. Potentially.
No.
We don't have the rates yet, but that was an estimate from her, so.
But to
Did you say
Commissioner,
15 or 50?
15,
1.5.
Okay, thank you.
15,000.
and that's based on our experience ratings right now. And we can shop for that, but not until the following year, because we're locked in right now. We locked in at a 2-year contract.
I-
So for this coming fiscal year, we can't change it, but if we
Okay.
wanted to look for the next one, then we can. The last time we did that, they wouldn't even quote us because of our experience rating. So I just want you to have that information ahead of time.
Okay. All right, next tab, legal. An increase of 40.82%. While I don't like this number, I'm not quite sure there's much we
There's
can,
nothing you can do about it.
we can do about it. Part of this, for the folks that are not here in chambers with us, is due to the fact on one particular case, we are outside of our reimbursement for insurance for a case, and we are facing another case. I'm not sure, honestly, that the $245,000 is enough. We have potential one suit coming up, and we definitely have another suit coming up. So we're squarely outside of the bounds of any of that. So I wish our attorney were here to speak to this.
Can I speak real quick?
Sure.
This is Tracy. So in speaking with our town attorney, we may want to increase this line another $150,000.
That was 150,000?
Yes. Correct. That's based on current lawsuits.
Where's my no button? Oh.
The problem is that we have we basically exhausted our insurance.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
On this one case.
On one case,
Right,
and then if we go,
But I believe the second case is tied to the first case, so the insurance doesn't
No.
recalibrate.
no,
No.
totally separate.
It will recalibrate?
I don't know if it will recalibrate.
It may not be covered.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it may not be covered,
Right.
so.
At all. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you were, I forget who it was last year, maybe it was you, Commissioner Bessler. You almost had a chalkboard and you kept writing up things that were pluses and writing down things that were minuses. So if you're keeping tabs, I think,
That's 165,000 so far if we're going through it, because it's 15,000 for workers' comp and then potentially 150,000 for legal.
okay. All right, not good news. What I would like, though, and I have had this discussion with with Town Manager Stevens, I'd like to see some more accountability when it comes to legal. I'd like for us to know ahead of time, potentially, what are the timelines and what are the potential cost on certain things, and we might make some different decisions as to whether we enter into litigation or how aggressive we are and other things like that. So I just want to state that for the record.
I think this has caused, our town attorney's problem with that is the other side doesn't seem to, how do we put it delicately? Doesn't seem to want to settle
Be
any
reasonable.
situation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And also, this is Susan, and also I think that the council's done a very good job in speaking with us individually ahead of the time for every time there's something coming up and wanting to know how much forward do we want to go. We've all had our chance to have a say, and they're the first to tell us because, you know, you have outside counsel, how much it all adds up every single time. But we are not working in an easy position here.
Tracy, is Brian going to give you a number? Like, was this just a conversation you had, or he was saying you better put that in the budget? So the next time we do the budget, will we have a better legal number? That's basically my question.
Yes, you'll have a better legal number when I come forward in July with your next version of the budget. This
Okay.
came from Brian as he was meeting one-on-one with commissioners and giving the assumptions.
Okay, thank you.
Next is appointed boards, a decrease of 29%. Any questions on this tab? Hearing none. Clerk, have there been any requests for public comment on any of this?
No request, just, you know, a little people just, hey, making sure that you guys speak directly into it.
Okay. I do welcome the public that is listening, though, that if, as we are going through any of this, you have a comment or a suggestion, I welcome you to let the clerk know. Okay. General government.
Mayor, I have good news on this one. So in your 504.610 line for repair and maintenance, I am looking at the AC maintenance agreements and parts, and I think I can reduce that down from 19,000 to 6,000.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
So that's a 13,000 in the black instead of red.
First one in the column. Okay. That's wonderful. Did we find some talent in-house to be able to take care of some of the maintenance for us?
No, but I'm doing a workaround.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of the line items that I had looked at and I had questioned. It just seemed like, I know that we have a lot of air conditioning units on site, but it just seemed like an inordinate amount of money, especially given the fact that we've got replacement contingencies potentially coming up also.
I'm sorry, which
How about the 507? How about the 507 account, Tracy? Did you look into refinancing either of those loans?
I haven't had a chance yet, but that will be one of the first things I do after this. I should have plenty of time to go ahead and talk to the bank to find out what we can do for refinance.
Okay, and then are you? I guess I'm assuming you're looking at if there's any money coming out to help the COVID for either low interest rates or anything like that from the federal, state government, or from the banks.
I have not looked into that, but all of our expenditures that we're expending now are covered by FEMA, so we should be able to get reimbursement for that up to, I don't know if it's 75%, I think, of our expenditures will be reimbursed by FEMA.
Yeah, but I meant more of like sort of what they're doing for small businesses, and they said they were going to start to look at doing it for towns and states and stuff like that to maybe get some money.
Yeah, so the League of Cities,
everybody heard.
yeah, the League of Cities has been our champion on that, and as the information comes out, we're getting that from them.
Okay, thank you.
So looking at line items, just real quickly, if you start at the top, 50300 and go all the way down, looking at some of these, is there, you had said that you had made some reductions already in potentially the holiday party that we have.
Yes,
So what we're looking at here, Christmas decor is simply lighting?
yes, correct. Christmas decor is lighting. What I did was I took the line that had $7,000 in it for our actual party that we hold for the public, and I reduced that down to $6,000.
We could go back to the days where it was potluck and we all had a lot of fun, so,
We certainly
Right,
could.
that could be, this is Susan, that could absolutely be something that we could all gang up together and maybe do more of than expecting from the town.
So on the lighting, and again, these are just, small little, almost, picks, but that is the lighting for Town Hall, and
Ocean Ave.
so would it be possible to split and only do Town Hall, only do Ocean Ave? Contractually, I just don't know where our contracts are, and I know Vice Mayor Cos, you were concerned about contractually, how married are we to a lot of stuff, so.
We do a contract each year for that, so that's a contract that we enter into on a yearly basis. So
At
we
the
can
time.
change it now, but we have to, we're getting into the point now where we will need to make this decision quickly.
Okay,
Because this is the time of year where we start getting the proposals and we have to sign a contract, or we
Sure.
won't be able to get anybody in here to do it.
Sure.
So we need a list of those contracts. Remember, we discussed this?
Well, you have a list of your contracts
We have 'em.
already in your budget book.
And I think the best way is to look at what's in the book and say, this looks way too high, this looks.
Right.
Yeah. I had the same thought, and unfortunately, our accounting system, it's not like,
Can't.
it's not a robust,
Well,
Search
Tracy
and find.
can't drill down to the smaller items. We can only
Correct.
look at the bigger items.
so. Is there any appetite to look at any reduction? I mean,
I think that would be something, because we're hoping it's going to be not permanent. It would be just a cost-saving measure that we could pick a little bit out of for this year.
So would you suggest just not doing the lights on Ocean Ave this year and just lighting up Town Hall, or?
I think I'd like to know what it is. If it's less than $500 to do Ocean Ave, and really it's
Okay.
$6,400 to do the Town Hall, it really doesn't make any difference, and,
Right,
people
so-
may
Okay, so
not be happy with the decision, so,
what we'll do is we'll get you some proposals for the next meeting.
okay,
Perfect.
Okay?
thank you. Any other line items that,
I have a couple of questions. I have one question, which was also the AC maintenance, that seemed high, but that's addressed, thank you.
Yes.
The pre-stamped envelope, this is Martin, by the way. The pre-stamped envelopes,
Yes.
$2,800. What are we using pre-stamped envelopes for?
We use them for any mailing that we have to do. So it's,
It's stuff that we are sending out?
Yes.
Oh, it's so it's the. Okay.
it's any mail that we send
Right,
out
comes
is a
out from the
pre-stamped
town.
envelope.
Pitney Bowes.
The reason why we do that is because we send it out for printing and they print our address on it and it's a
So it's not like we're sending something
No.
to somebody with a pre-addressed envelope and
No.
they're sending us something back?
No.
Thank you.
you said you had another question in this
Well, yeah,
area?
on the general thing with with our loans that we have two loans. One of them is a stormwater drainage improvement loan, which has 2.56 million left on it. And we have a 2.09 or $2.1 million balance on a loan from the construction on Town Hall. And this is, Phil hopefully can shed some light on that too. What I was thinking was, if there is a way how to get something that, and I know it's not gonna be the same thing, but it's basically like an equity line. So instead of having an actual loan with an actual interest rate that we're paying off, we would take the 2.1 million out of reserve, for example, on the town hall construction, we would take the 2.1 million out of our reserve that we're having in bank accounts, pay off our own loan, and then have an equity line with that bank over $2.1 million basically that we could use in case we have to get into it. From my understanding is we haven't really tapped into our reserves that deep where we came down to under $2 million in cash in reserve in years.
Correct.
So we would actually not be tapping into this equity line. We would just, we have other funds that are there that we can tap into and then replenish them.
As if it was the reserve time.
But we're not paying interest on an equity line that we're not using. Because we're not getting big money on the money that we cash out in the bank. But we're paying relatively, it's relatively, but we're paying higher interest than what we're getting for our own money. So this would be
Right, that's what Tracy was going to look into.
Right.
Is, we called it like whether we want to do kind of almost like a construction loan or home equity loan. So same idea. So that's
Okay.
it's
Letter
all.
of credit.
Now,
You're right, Tracy.
yeah, and so I reached out to our banker, and he cautioned us because the banks right now are giving loans out to the businesses that really need it right now, that are struggling. So he said something about the market volatility and where their funds were not going to be available to give to municipalities right now.
All right, we discussed this last
Yes,
time,
we
correct?
discussed-
Because I remember you telling us that.
Right, we discussed it in the
That was
last
Phil's
meeting.
question, that was Phil's
Mhm.
question last time, and that you said
Right.
you had reached out to the bank.
Right.
so what they're saying is they're not lending to municipalities.
Yeah, hold on, let me tell you what he said exactly, 'cause I have it here.
Well, I mean, I could kind of tell you from my own history, when the economy tanked in 2008, what the banks did was the government gave them real low money to give out to fuel up the economy. And what they did was that the banks were very nervous that they weren't going to get the money back. And they called everybody that didn't need the money and gave it to them. So I have a feeling that's going to happen again. The government's going to give the banks money, but the banks are afraid that if they give them to people that really need the money and they can't make the payments, the banks lose the principal and could eventually go under. So they're going to look to give out money again. So I think even though the banks are saying that they're not giving it to you now, I think you just got to be calling them. Once a week, every couple of weeks, whatever, just to see. Because I think the climate's going to change, and there's going to be some not easy money to get, but low interest money to fuel the economy again. So
Yeah.
we just got to be there with our hand.
Yeah, so what our banker said was, when I asked him about the equity line of credit, he said typically it's a no-brainer, but we're on a bank-wide freeze right now. So they're not giving out any loans at all. They're on a freeze.
That is going to change within
Yeah.
months. That
Correct.
is something, I have the same thing. We have lenders that are they put a complete freeze since March. They're not lending anything.
Right.
But that is about to change as, where everybody wanted to go was see what's going to happen. Now that we're somewhat seeing what's happening, I think all this money is going to free up very shortly.
Well, it's a
Yeah,
large,
I mean,
sorry,
I just got money five-year fixed at 1.86. So the money's out there. They're going to start giving it out. It's a shame I can't give it to you guys because
Oh,
I'd be
come on.
glad to give it to you guys and you pay the 1.86. It's
come on.
no money.
Well, I think the point is
Pretty cool to
it,
do.
sure, it's $779,000. And that, we wouldn't even be talking about dipping out of reserves if we didn't have you know, if that was in a different situation. So I agree with both commissioners that we just need to stay on top of this and continue to push as hard as we can to get reduction.
We might find something that would be very helpful to us if we keep our eyes out.
But we should definitely deal with the two items that open this up. Right, the 468 and the 2567 that we first talked about, Tracy? You were going to hit the banks up to see if,
Right.
number one, if those are frozen or locked so that we couldn't change them, and number two, if we, right.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
What options we might
Yeah,
have.
because even if there's a possibility of it being locked, it may be similar to what Martin said.
Yeah.
If it is locked and we can't change the interest rate, can we just prepay it and get it out? Because I think the ones that are like around a 3+ interest rate, and the money that we're earning is, you know, we were earning, what were we earning, like about 1.8%, and, you know, now it's a lot lower.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Let's move on to the police department. Law enforcement and fire control expense.
You guys still there?
Yes,
Yes.
I don't think he heard.
All right.
Is he
Phil?
still there?
Hello?
Phil, are you there?
Commissioner Bessler?
Yeah, would you guys mute me or talk?
No?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can
good.
you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I lost you, I talked a little while. I thought you were sick of hearing me, so you just muted me.
We lost you too.
I'm glad you're back.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, thanks.
Okay, fantastic. Any questions on any of the line items that are presented? Any questions from the public?
This is the police department.
Correct.
Yep.
All law enforcement.
So, anything you want to add, Chief?
Oh, gosh, don't ask him that.
Yeah, right.
No, I meant verbally, not.
Boat, drone, helicopter.
Just a quick test for the people virtually. Can you guys hear me? And you can say yes in the chat box. Can you hear me, Commissioner Bessler?
I hear you on and off. You're breaking. You guys you broke up the last couple minutes on me. Phil
That-
Bessler.
That may be our telephone system. We've had some issues with connectivity as an IP. It's no longer AT&T wire, it goes from AT&T wire to IP, and sometimes we have that condition when certain things happen. So we can't control that, unfortunately, with that phone
Okay, I
system.
heard Hal. Okay.
Okay, so it's probably come back. It's pixelating is what it's called.
Just so you know, Polly Joe can't hear you guys either. She called my wife.
Okay.
There have already been adjustments made by the town manager in the presentation to trim this down as much as we think is feasible. How's that?
Okay.
And appropriate. I would urge you not to be too drastic. And I would just tell you this, that based upon our required response last night and what we will be doing tonight, we have proven that we need every piece of equipment and more on occasion. And so I think that we are as lean as we can be right now with the situation that's presenting itself with COVID, the nation's problem with protests, and unfortunately a pending hurricane in September, October, if it comes to fruition. So I would ask that you just be as gentle as you can. Most of the costs in here are fixed costs, as you know.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, building and inspection services.
May I
Sure.
just, I had a question on the, this is Martin, on the we have on the 2020 to the 2021 repair of the vehicles. As the vehicles get older, I would expect that there would be a higher maintenance cost, and here in the budget, we actually dropped it by 5,000. I was just wondering if there was anything in particular that made that happen, or if you're actually expecting it to be less.
So that was based on research that I had done on past repair and maintenance on the vehicles. So I looked to see what we typically spend on that. Where the vehicles are getting older, we could have more, but I think 10,000 is still gonna be pretty comfortable in that range.
Just struck me.
That was a pencil sharpening
Yep.
That was not a pencil sharpening exercise by the police department.
We didn't think so.
Okay,
I was interested in prisoner food.
moving back on to our Building and Inspection Services Department.
Well,
Any questions?
no, been down that
No.
one.
Kind of is what it is.
Right.
My only question, and
Hey,
again,
guys, I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you.
okay, one of my questions was on 505-400, the
Chris-
subscriptions.
Mayor,
Yes,
he's saying he can't hear us. Should we do a recess to figure out the problems?
I just heard you now, Tracy,
Oh, okay.
just say that.
Well,
Okay, all right,
maybe
never
it's
mind.
your microphone. Can you hear me, Phil?
No, because other people are texting my wife. They can't hear you. Polly Joa couldn't hear you. She sent you a note. Well, she sent
okay,
my wife
can we take a
note.
5-minute recess? Would that
But I
be?
heard you.
Yeah, it lost connection, but it seems to be back on now. So the phone system lost connection, so we're back
Maybe
on
we should
now.
go around the room.
Okay,
Okay, I heard Carla.
okay, Phil, you're going to be our guinea pig. We're going to go around the room and talk, and you can just let us know if you can hear us. So this is
Watch you
Christine.
guys again.
5 minutes.
But I don't know if we're gonna be able to fix it in 5 minutes.
But they're
though,
not going to be able to
because
hear you
it's
say 5 minutes.
the- Right, well, not only that, but it's probably because of our phone system, and we can't fix that part.
It's either going to be our phone system or it's going to be our WebEx software that is causing the problem, because we have not had a problem hearing Anthony as office before.
Is that a line item, phone system?
Can you
It
unmute
will.
somebody there?
I feel Bessler's unmute. I have unmuted everybody. They have physically
So-
muted themselves.
Let's just see if
How many
anybody can.
people are on, Carla?
We have 7 people on.
For the 7 people that are on telephonically, can one of you speak so we can see if we can hear you, please? You've all been unmuted.
I just heard the mayor fine, but I hadn't heard you guys for a little while, on and off.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I heard you. 1, 2, 3.
Phil, this is Susan. Can you hear me?
Yes, heard you, Susan.
Okay. Has anybody that is telephonically participating tried to speak to us? Polly Joa, Mrs. Joa, can you hear us?
Did she zap you?
No, she hasn't zapped me. Yeah, I unmuted everybody, so.
Who else is on that we could ask? Commissioner Bessler? Commissioner Bessler?
That's where the echo comes in.
That's somebody on the telephone and the computer texting.
Right.
Yep.
Commissioner Bessler?
Commissioner Bessler, can you hear us now?
Hi, I called on the phone.
That's why.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes?
Yeah, we could hear you the whole time.
Can you hear us?
Try again, Carla.
Commissioner Bessler, can you hear us?
Phil, can you hear me? This is Susan. We might have lost him completely.
We're gonna have to to recess because we need to get him back on.
Okay, yeah,
What
we
was
need
that
him.
strange,
He was dialing
He was
through.
dialing himself on, the, right,
Next to each other?
right, which you said before.
but it sounded like a computer voice rebooting.
Yeah.
It was.
It was
He was on the
rebooting.
computer and he was on the phone.
It was rebooting the conference call.
Okay, everybody, if you're going to get up,
Mask on.
put your mask on, and we are going to take a brief recess at 5 minutes after 3.
How brief?
At least 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So are you going to turn the meeting up, restart it, and ask everybody to sign up again?
Let me try.
One at a time, please.
Betty, I'd like to go ahead and resume the meeting or recall the meeting at 3:15. I don't think we need to do roll call. We're all still here.
Except for Commissioner Bessler, are you there? Okay.
I can hear.
Fantastic.
I can hear you, Phil.
Okay, we're going to get into the meat of it now. We're moving through building inspection. We have solid waste and recycling. I guess the thought of going down to 1 time a week pickup,
I'm not a fan.
you're not a fan. Is anybody else a fan of
No.
exploring it?
This is Susan, I am not a fan.
Okay. Skipping right on.
More problems than solving.
Well, plus in the summer, it's
Oh, yeah.
stinky
Oh,
mess.
boy, the whole
Yeah.
town will be.
Okay.
It'll keep people out of town.
There you
Oh,
go.
we might want to rethink this.
Other physical environment and town engineer.
We have our town engineer here that can answer any questions you may have.
Sure.
This is Martin. We had an increase from 19 to 20 for 80,000, roughly $80,000. And I wanted to find out, and now we're projecting another increase of that same. Where do we stand year to date on that line item? Are we going to use the 284,000 for this year that we had budgeted?
I'm confused as to where you are.
I'm sorry.
Other
What
contractual services.
Other contractual.
Oh, right.
Contractual services.
Okay, so I don't have the revenue and expenditure reports in front of me right now. I could go grab them if you want me to and tell you where we're at.
Out of roughly, do you know if we came close to it yet, or will we reach it? Will we most likely reach it?
I think we're pretty much on track, if I remember.
And what comprises this number?
Actually, Jean, could you go grab a revenue and expenditure report for me? There's probably one in one of the commissioner mailboxes, I assume. There probably is a new one sitting in there.
Is this what you're looking for?
Yeah, you have it?
Yep.
Okay.
Can't read it. Writing's too small.
I had to grab my reading glasses when I walked out the door.
So what comprises this number? Because it's not the engineer. Other contractual services, is this hybrid and,
No, if
Higgins
you
and-
turn to your next page,
uh-huh,
there's a budget detail
Ah.
worksheet. That'll tell you everything that's in there. And actually, Martin, we
Ah.
are actually tracking a little low in that one right now, in that line item. You're talking about 5034. We are at 30% expended right now, and we should be at 50, as of, this is the March report, we should be 50%, so. We're tracking a
But
little
then
down.
we have a line item in tonight's agenda for
Yes.
$75,000 or something. That will go into this same line item, correct?
You're talking to Luther?
That
The,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
That will basically add into this line item, and so we're going from 30%.
That might be capital.
so in
That's a
looking.
capital expenditure, so that's not gonna go in this line item.
So this,
How's the mosquitoes control going? It seems like everybody's happy. I haven't heard a lot of complaints about the iguanas.
People have been very happy with the service, very happy with the service, yeah. So, looking at this, under 5034, I mean, it's not an insignificant amount of money for sure. This is a lot of our, I guess, drainage, continual drainage pieces. When we look at the Hinterland Group and Foster Marine, those are projected numbers for specific to a project or just overall?
Overall. So anytime we would have to have them come in to do a stormwater fix or a public works project, that would be covered under that line item.
But to Commissioner Vishalak's comment, if it's here, how are we then having it somewhere else? If we're gonna say Eleuthera is now 75, of that 75, I'm presuming one of these groups would be helping it, so why is this a separate item? Does that am I making sense?
Specific capital items are listed under your capital projects list. So a company doesn't mean it's gonna be one of these companies, it's a company will come in and give us proposals on a capital expenditure project that we have. These items that are in the 503-400 are the other things that come up throughout the year that aren't necessarily capital projects. They're things like we have to call in line tech because we had a water main break, or we have some drainage problems in a certain area that we need to tackle.
Okay.
That's what that's for.
I was just making sure we weren't double dipping.
No.
So you're talking like a clogged pipe, like we had at Spanish, that kind of thing?
Right,
Yes.
not a big specific project, which then comes individual.
Yes, it's things that come up throughout the year that we need to handle, so we have the money here to do that.
Okay, so, but to Commissioner Vishalak's point, these numbers seem to be solid enough that they're not overinflated, but they're not underinflated where we get caught in a situation like we had with hydrants or something like that, a huge expense that we didn't ever anticipate. So these seem to be pretty okay?
Want me to-
Yeah.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lisa Tropepi. Hopefully you can all hear me. Mayor and Commissioners, great to see you all, or most of you in person. The other contractual services do include items that relate to storm drainage maintenance items. So we have an ongoing video program where we'll either bring in Televac or Hinterland Group, for example. One contractor is out of Broward, the other contractor is here locally, and so if we need something on a proactive standpoint or reactive, if there's a clog, like Commissioner Cos stated, we send these guys out to video the storm water pipes, and some of this cost is for that. And then they'll come back and say, well, like we just did on Spanish River, there was some grouting that needed to be taken care of. We took that and utilized the monies out of this department in order for Televac to come back and grout those areas where the pipe dislocated itself from the catch basin.
Could you tell me about the swale and sidewalk construction? Is that just an anticipation of maybe repairing what is already there, or is that connected with a project that we're in hopes of doing? It's the last line item under contractual services.
I think, again, that's probably a maintenance line item where
Okay.
from time to time sidewalks crack and they can potentially be a trip hazard, and so we have to put monies aside in order to make those repairs. Unfortunately, we haven't had anything to exacerbate it to the point where we had to spend a lot of funds in order to do that. We keep an eye on it, and we've actually decreased that amount by 50%.
That's why I was asking. This is probably not for you to address, Lisa, but Chris Wayne at $100,000, I know What percentage of that is the coconut trim versus just regular maintenance?
I think it was,
I'll have to get back to you on that. I can't remember.
wasn't it 20,000?
I thought it was right
18,000 or
around.
20,000?
I thought it was
But-
right around there.
Yeah.
We're stuck with it. Once it was presented, weren't we stuck with it because of the
Yeah.
liability?
Yeah, so unless you want to change your
Mm-hmm.
ordinance back to say we don't want to do coconut trim anymore, then we have to pay that cost to do
No,
it.
but I mean, I know that I presume we're happy with Chris Wayne and his pieces. Are there any things that he is doing above and beyond his contract that potentially could be brought back in-house if we finally have a robust maintenance staff?
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
just-
things like, he finds a broken sprinkler head, he goes ahead and fixes that after he gives us a proposal, things like that.
Is that a good place to consider some trimming? Have we looked at that when we talked about sharpening our pencils, right? Like you're saying, are there other things there?
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll have the Public Works Supervisor give you a narrative and answer that question for you.
Fantastic. Please?
This is Martin and it's for Lisa. So Patty, the storm drain maintenance, I'm coming back to these two items, storm drain maintenance for Hinterland Group and Public Works for Foster Marine. We didn't have anything in the 2020 budget because we didn't have a contract with them.
Correct.
So this time we have it in the budget. How did we do, or where did the money come from this year or the year before to do that type of work that we're now budgeting here? Because really not much has changed on the 2020 side versus the 21, except these two items are added into it. But I'm sure we had issues that were addressed during that time that are now covered under those $55,000.
I can answer you a little bit. We had some of that under the capital program last year, but then some of it was brought back into this line item because that's where it belongs. It's a repair and maintenance, so it's not necessarily a capital project. So we brought some of that money from capital to this line.
Okay, so you took it out of capital on your side
Yep.
for the 21.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
We can reduce these line items just a little bit. I'm not comfortable reducing them a lot, because we've seen a lot of issues come up this year that I'm really not comfortable reducing that a whole lot.
No, I was just
I
looking for
understand.
explanation. I mean,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
yeah.
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 Because these are
And-
important.
Okay.
And it's not unusual. I mean, we have old pipes, we have Old Town
Right.
Issues.
issues, yes. But if there are some things that we have been contracting out that we could start to do in-house, I think that's, even if it's, a sprinkler head here, a sprinkler
Right.
head there, I think those are the type of things that we need to challenge ourselves with.
Will do.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Public Works. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Any questions on the Public Works? It is not a budgetary thing necessarily, but could you give us just a quick update as to where we are in terms of interviewing and potential hires?
Right, so we still have our, well, as you know, we appointed in the interim Billy Armstrong to the Public Works Supervisor position. He's been doing a great job in his position. So we have renewed our Public Works 1 advertisement. So we're collecting applications for both positions right now so that I can make a determination on which one we're going to fill, whether we keep Billy in Public Works Supervisor position. Like I said, he's been doing a great job. So we keep him there. We hire somebody for Public Works 1. Currently, we have a temporary part-time employee serving in the Public Works 1 position. He's been doing a great job too. I wish we could keep him, but we can't because of a policy that we have. But we are collecting Public Works One applications. Billy and I are gonna go over those together and then determine who we want to bring in for an interview. And I see that probably happening in the next month. In the interim, it's filled though. We have somebody in here working 32 hours a week on a temporary basis.
And that's within our budgeted
Yes,
amount?
correct.
Gotcha.
That's taking over for Tim's position. When Tim left, we had an opening.
Okay. All right. Could you speak to the generator repair line item? That was, looks like a new addition to the budget.
Where are you?
504.610, repairs and maintenance.
Yep.
Yes, that one, if, I think, did I put it in the narrative? No. Okay, so that was a request from the Public Works Supervisor. We have been having continual problems with some of our generators, and we never had a line for repair of those, so
Okay.
we actually need it. They're starting to age, and we're seeing wear and need for repair.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was a new generator or what
No,
was going
it's
on.
an older one.
Exactly. Now we need to budget for it.
I'm seeing a theme here. Okay. All right, moving on then to personnel. Oh. You guys speak up there.
This is Martin. And this is just a general question, Tracy. The utility service that is provided to all the departments that we have broken down, the police department has their separate items, you guys have your separate items, public works. Do we get a special rate from FPL, or are we paying the same rate that everybody else is paying commercial? Is that like a municipal rate? Or it's just a-
No,
No,
Business rate.
it's the same.
it's a business
Yeah.
rate, okay.
Did the town get the 25% off for the month of April on the FPL bill?
I
Huh.
don't, I haven't seen.
They gave it to residents. It's kind of cool.
Did you get it?
Yeah,
You did?
Okay.
I didn't see one on my bill.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Anything on mine, yeah.
you don't fill out paperwork.
Did you fill out paperwork? Did you
No,
have to?
I just got it. They announced it and sent a little letter in the mail.
So Jean, would you follow up with that?
So maybe coming, maybe incremental, we may not have just not gotten it.
Right, could
Okay.
be.
All
It
right.
it might have been the month of May, actually.
I will tell you that because I haven't seen it either, it's probably based on the billing cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions before we move to personnel? All right. Fantastic. With personnel, what do we put in our budget for, and is this where it would go for increases in salary? Do we do the full 5% and then what is ever is not utilized in the 5%, it goes back into the general fund?
Correct.
Okay. Health and vision increased 11%. Workman's comp. Is there anything with the workman's comp that we could do in policies and procedures to help that number dissipate in the future? Or reduce?
Meaning safety, enhanced safety.
Something, yes,
Anything, right?
yes.
Yes, we can have Chief and I can look at our safety policies and enhance them if needed.
Okay. Is that basically where it stems from?
It will be a human resources administration math problem and collaboration with our insurance company to determine what's available and what we are able to actually implement based upon our size to get those reductions. And I know that we take advantage now of a grant program from one of our insurance companies. It doesn't reduce our rate, but we get usually around $4,000 to $5,000 for safety-related equipment.
Okay.
And when we see the programs that we believe we can administer with the size staff and resources we have, we try and do that. So we can certainly look into more of these.
Okay, thank you. Likewise, with our health and dental and vision and insurance plans, are we happy with them?
Yes, we're very happy, and I've talked to our employees one-on-one to
Mhm.
see how they like the plan, and I had a conversation with one employee over the weekend, and he was really grateful for the current plan that we have, because under our old plan, he would have incurred about $7,000 out of pocket for something he had to have done, and he paid $250 under our plan.
Fantastic.
So yes, the
Good for him.
employees are really happy with the current plan.
So just for everybody's edification, our employees have coverage, and then they have the ability to purchase coverage for their spouse and their children,
Yes,
correct?
and that's the only downfall with our plan. It's pretty pricey, premium-wise. So, if I wanted to put, say, my husband on the plan, it would cost me $800 a month to do that.
I would take that in a nanosecond. Okay.
So the problem that we hear is those employees who have been around for a long time, under prior plans, love this plan. Those that have come in love the plan, but the benefits package that doesn't include
The family.
spouse or family coverage seems to be the sticking point with insurance.
Right.
At this point, not the fact that we have Blue Cross Blue Shield and that it is a good product that is serving the employees that has it well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the sticking point, and you might see this in future negotiations too, they want to see the town put in some money toward the premium for dependent coverage. So we do 0% now, they might want to see a 25% so that they can put a spouse on.
If we get to that point, what we did with the plan, it's the Cadillac plan.
Yeah,
So
it's a good plan.
if now there's a movement next year, the following year, to include spouse and children, a certain percentage of that, then we should take a look at the plan.
Shop the plan.
Right.
Correct, correct. And if we go towards that, I would encourage you to reach out and speak to town manager Dunham and Gulfstream. They cover part, they actually have it as almost like an FSA account, and the employee can use that towards their deductible, towards their stuff, towards coverage for somebody else, but it is not, they had to give it, and rightfully so, to each and every employee, because people who didn't need the coverage, you can't give one thing to an employee and not in the same area compensate another employee.
Right.
So,
Correct.
but they have an interesting philosophy, so, but it might be worth something to look into. Okay, so we are going to take a look at some safety measures and/or things that we can do to try to lower this workman's comp. Okay. Any other suggestions or discussion on personnel? We're almost to the fun part. Okay. Contingency. I understand why we moved it from 50 to 100 to to Commissioner Vishalak's earlier comment. Of the 50 that we had this year, how much of it have we used? I can't read this. All right. Why don't you keep that?
How much did we spend this year?
Correct.
Right.
We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
We don't know. Okay, sorry.
We're trying
She's
to
looking
find
at the
out.
tiny print.
Must have laser-like eyes.
We're over budget, 54%.
54% over budget? What do you mean, time-wise?
We are at 54% of budget when we should be at 50.
Right.
At
we're
this
at
point in
54%.
time?
4%.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And that's due to COVID.
Okay. So chances are we are going to use all 50.
Right.
I'm just trying to get a baseline, so. And I know that we had discussed about increasing this from 50 to 100 when we said that we were going to potentially shave off things or push the pause button on some of the things, whether that was the pause button on the drain field, the pause button on a new AC unit, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So I think,
And really, if you look at that discussion too, 100,000, that could be one hurricane.
Right.
From contingency, because that was Irma. We spent 105,000 out of contingency for that one hurricane.
okay. As much as I would like to think that we can shave and sharpen, this is not the area I think we
I don't think so
need to
either.
be doing it. Is everybody, commissioners, in agreement?
I agree.
Yeah, I have no issue with increasing contingency, pulling some of these, when we get to the pause button things,
Mm-hmm.
taking a look at and increasing contingency as we hit the pause button, because if we do have a flare-up on a drainage issue or something like that, then we can hit contingency
Right.
to fix it.
Correct. All right. Moving on, we are going now to the fiscal 21 capital fund. And
So,
This-
can I just interrupt you? I would
Sure.
ask you to turn to your FY '21 capital items list, because that's really the sheet you need to look at. You have your statement of revenues and expenditures. It's the next page after that.
Yeah, you lost me.
It's called
In the
FY
beginning?
'21 capital items.
In the beginning of the book, or we
Nope.
just go
No.
down here? Okay.
Keep
Capital
going.
funds and.
It's after your narratives.
Oh, I see.
See it?
Capital items.
Yeah. FY '21 capital items.
it's got
After the
two
statement.
yellow spots on it.
Right.
So that's a good suggestion. We should be looking at this as we go through, because I really like the narrative, and I think the narrative lays it out in
Me
a
too.
good discussion format. But if you pull the items, you can see as we make any adjustments, if we make any adjustments, what it'll do to the bottom line.
Right.
Okay. All right. Infrastructure improvements, maintenance, machinery, and equipment. Here we go. This was year 2 of a 5-year plan that we developed 2 years ago, correct?
Are you looking at the right sheet?
Yeah,
I'm
you-
on,
Where are
my
you?
number 1 item is to replace all
Replace.
terrain vehicle.
Mm-hmm. I'm asking a question.
Oh, okay. What's your question?
Where are we?
This capital program, we are
Yes.
in the second year of a 5-year program, are we not?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
But there's two sheets, there's this and the 5-year sheet. Which one are you working on?
No, I'm using this, but I'm just for people to understand how this is separated and why it's separated.
Okay.
It's
Yep.
part of an overall plan that we developed for,
Right.
as a 5-year plan.
Yes.
Slowly trying to get our arms around doing some past repairs, upgrades, maintenance, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and some
So-
of the items that are on your FY '21 capital list, some of those are derived from your 5-year capital plan, and then some are new requests for this
Correct.
year. So yes.
Correct. So as we go through, could you help identify the ones that are new versus the ones that are part of the plan?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, number 1, replace all-terrain vehicle at $10,000.
New request.
New request.
How old is that vehicle that we have? The current one, or the current, I think it's 2, no?
We have 2.
And it's sort of a new request. We requested the same thing last year, but it's not part of the 5-year capital plan per se.
Okay.
Because it's not like we're gonna need one every single year on
Right.
a 5-year capital, and we're not saving for it, we're just asking to buy it.
Okay, so, but we're going, just so I'm clear, we're going from 2 all-terrains, and this would be now, we are having 3 all-terrains.
No, it says it's
No,
family.
Nope,
Okay,
we will,
okay,
Retire.
yep, we will, trade one in,
okay.
so we'll still have 2.
Two working ones.
Yep.
Any questions for the chief on this?
You wanted to know how old it was, huh?
Age.
So the reason I came to the mic is because I'm told that you can't hear me when I'm over there. So the age of it is, it is a 2018 model year. It is 3 years old. It is starting to fail because of the environment that we use it in. We have noticed some frame issues. And so we figured this is, when we tried to hold them for 4 years, we generally get about 3.5, and we end up having to buy it anyway because it falls apart. With COVID beach patrols and with the stuff that's going on today, we're using them more now than ever.
And the frame issue is rust, I assume?
The frame issue is because of we driving them through salt water and sand, and we have, nobody has found a way to get in every nook and cranny. It just, once it gets there and it gets to a certain point, it's no longer safe. And yet, to replace the frame, we did this on one, was 3/4 of the price of a new one.
Sure.
It's just a maintenance, and
Yeah.
it's like
Are-
building your car from spare parts.
Sure, are we, when they come in, though, out of the field, are we washing them down and,
So we have a wash down and a coating and all kinds of unenvironmentally friendly things that we do to try and preserve them.
Right, it just, but there's no all-terrain vehicles specifically made for saltwater use, are there? You would think, let's come up with that.
Listen to the price tag.
There are none that I have ever seen in any of my travels to any trade show with every toy you can imagine in the world on the showroom floor. So the ones that we're buying are the largest ones in the market share per se, and we've gone through 4 different manufacturers, and we're using the one that we find to have the best shelf life, let's say.
Would it be possible, and I'm, you know, even though I have some knowledge in that field, but would it be possible to have like a leasing program where we, instead of owning the vehicle, where we lease them and then just hand them back in after 2 years before we have a frame issue on something that really becomes a safety issue when now you have to disclose it and now the value of the vehicle that you're trading in gets reduced?
We've been very successful in trading in our machines at the 3-year period. And I think that we've gotten the biggest bang for our buck out of that. I am not aware of any continuous lease programs like they have for certain types of vehicles. I know that for police motorcycles, Harley Davidson has a robust lease and return program. The used all-terrain vehicle market is not the same as that of Harley Davidson or some of the other better known motorcycles, so I'm not aware of it.
Christine, I have to pop out for 3 or 4 minutes. I'll return.
okay.
Okay.
I think that beach patrol is one of the unique features that we have in our town, and it's a necessary feature, and I think it is one that is highly valued by all employees, all
Yeah.
residents. So I wouldn't suggest that.
I had one email from somebody that was not very happy about the beach patrol.
Okay, well, remember, you're not going to tell us who, okay?
But it's a necessity, an expensive one, but it's
And
It's a
I
necessity.
understood where he was coming from too,
Sure,
but yes.
okay.
high
Well,
priority.
the majority of residents, I believe, feel that this is an asset to the town.
It's a necessary thing, it's part of our
Right.
town and it needs to be patrolled, so.
Yes,
Exactly right.
yes, we're lucky enough to have the problem of a beach.
Yes, right.
Okay. Okay, so if there's consensus, we'll go ahead and move on?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
Any public comment? Clerk Armstrong? No? Okay. Number 2, I think is a no-brainer also. The town hall doors are literally falling off their hinges. They're hard to open. The locking mechanism sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. If anybody has an issue, please let me know. If not, we'll just move forward. Okay. Same thing, I think, goes for number 3, the replacement of the security window in the dispatch center.
Can I just talk about this just for a minute?
Sure.
So if you see on there, it's to replace the security window in dispatch and also to install security windows in town hall. So each one would be 10,000. So if we replace the dispatch window that is currently broken, that's 10,000. If we add security windows to town hall, it's 10,000 per window. We have 2 there.
Right, 30,000 here, 10-ish.
So that, you know, you can discuss that. We don't currently have security windows in town hall. So this poses a security issue for the entire building. If our police department and town hall is the same building, somebody could breach the town hall side and get into the police department.
Chief?
Tracy, on number 3, though, it's not coinciding with the write-up. Is that just correct? It's just an error?
That is correct, Phil. That is correct. It was not updated. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Chief?
I will go out on a limb and say that the $10,000 that was originally used as an estimate for replacement of the PD window, I'm hoping was high. We've had some great difficulty in getting someone in to replace just the glass, so we used the old prices we had plus a couple rough estimates. There are some other things that we can do if you want in town hall that may minimize the cost for us and change the thing. I would highly encourage you at this point in time to consider it, especially for town hall. I think that that is an extremely important position to be in now, especially with COVID, the ability to secure that. And I'm going to say it again, what you saw on the news last night. I think this is very important for us to consider. Times have changed. We can't act like we're in Mayberry anymore, unfortunately.
By installing the windows in town hall, there would be a space underneath where you could pass things back and forth, and I just don't want us to look like, you know, the baby that lives in the bubble.
No, and
So-
we also would have the ability to open them, just like we have in dispatch now. We have the ability, they're locked in place, but we have the ability to open them if we needed to. But it also has the pass-through underneath as well.
Okay.
That's part of the reason that the systems that we're asking you for seem to be very expensive, because engineering those to be secure is much more difficult than the plexiglass bubble.
Sure. So the line item on number 3 is 30,000,
Correct.
not 10,000?
Correct.
Okay. Any comments on, I think it's a necessary evil based on
Security.
life.
Yeah, security.
So we are under the additions tab, Commissioner Bessler, add
No.
another 20? No?
No, it's
It was
already in there.
So
No,
it
it's
would,
on there.
it's on there, it just the narrative
Right, the
was
narrative
not
said
changed
10.
from 10 to
Okay.
30.
It didn't say 3 for
Yeah.
10.
But it's in the data sheet,
Right,
so
so
it's
Okay.
still included.
Okay.
But we're worried about people potentially breaching into the secure area through the 2 windows here at Town Hall
Correct.
versus the dispatch area, which already has a security window that needs to be replaced because it's broken.
It's broken.
So the security window in dispatch, there's no doubt that needs to get done.
Yes.
I'm wondering if right now we have the gates down. I don't know. I'm probably wondering over $20,000 for a week. I don't like security windows. I don't like the separation of glass. I like the fact that I can,
Right.
talk to Carla as a normal person.
I
and
know,
talk
but
to
we're not
Carla
in the same
I
position
know.
as we
But-
were. And
yeah.
you said they do open.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
they do open.
And if it was, if it was you coming to the window, we could certainly open it if nobody else was behind you and talk to you.
It's 2 things. It's security is first and foremost, but I also think the health issues maybe with the COVID is, it may have allowed you to stay open a little longer or do some things a little differently here in Town Hall if we had
Correct.
had
But
those
I think
windows.
everybody's probably going to be catching up with this. I think this is going to be the norm.
4 years ago, for a different reason, Gulfstream, you have to be buzzed in.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't even see a live person until you are buzzed in and they see you on a camera and come in. So this is we're one of the few town halls that actually allow the amount of interaction that we
Right,
have.
the openness.
I don't like it either, but,
But security is a priority.
mhm.
I'm with you, Martin. I don't like it either. I like the interaction, but it's just, you know, we have to, yeah,
It is, exactly right.
Move on, it's the new norm.
yeah,
Hard to get used to, right?
Mhm.
It breaks my heart.
yeah,
No, I
same
know.
here.
Okay, moving on to number 4, police radio and telephone recorders at $30,000. Chief?
The recorder that's required for recording telephone calls, 911 calls, and emergency radio traffic is well beyond its expected life cycle. Technology has changed. It is outdated and requires tweaking on a regular basis. The last time we replaced it over 10 years ago, we got one for $150,000. We were able to parlay it out over 5 years. My recommendation is that we seek that same type of service or explore a different service, but all of them have come in around $25,000 to $35,000 per year. The most cost-effective seems to be a purchase of a system over a 5-year period.
So this is a purchase, it's not a lease, but it's a purchase with just installment payments?
Yes.
More or less.
Total
So
cost
we're,
of-
we want to buy your system. You'll finance it for us at the same price for 5 years. And
So
That's-
this will go on our 5-year
Yes.
expenditure.
Mhm.
plan. This
Right.
will be one of those 5-year.
Right.
plans.
Correct.
Right, so if you're approving it now, you're approving 150, but we
Right.
only have to expend 30 out of this year.
30 per year.
But
You
you're,
will have
you're,
to expend
you-
30,000
you're
per
committing
For the next
to
5
it.
years.
Yeah, you're committing to it for
Thank
5
you.
years.
Right.
And I'm assuming that there's zero interest on these 5-year plans.
we've been successful over the last 2 times, is my understanding, of replacing this equipment to get it exactly that way
Right.
and to parlay that 5 years into 7 or 10.
Good.
How long do we have to maintain records?
So we maintain audio recordings for a minimum of 30 days unless they're related to a criminal case.
Mhm.
And then it's governed by Florida Public Records Law and statutory requirements for prosecution.
I mean, if the other one's failing, I don't see, we really don't have much of a decision here. It's a requirement that we have to
Right.
do it.
Right.
The question is, are we gonna spend $25,000 or $30,000 every year?
For 5
We're
years.
gonna spend $30,000 for the next 5 years and then own the system and hopefully be able to nurse it for 10 years and then have to replace it in 7 years. That's my.
I can assure you that if somebody comes in and tells me that they can do the same thing for $12,500 a year, we'll lease their system. We'll do the math on it. It's very difficult for us to get commitments from vendors and pricing on this type of equipment and get them to be competitive unless they know that we have the money sitting there ready. I'm sorry to say that, but even in this day and age, that seems to be the norm with this particular type of take it or leave it vendor. And like I say, technology has changed, so a lot of it's digital, so that we outweighted the oh my gosh, you need a new system and you have to have it now, and it's $200,000. We've waited till the market kind of leveled back off by putting that off for 2 years now.
At one point, I know that there had been some discussion, and I don't think it's at all related to this, but it might in terms of materials, that we had looked at potentially tying into a ring technology that they were coming out with a police interface for people who have ring security, individual ring security systems. Has probably nothing to do with this, but it would probably require some type of equipment and stuff. I mean, have we pursued that? Has it proved? I know that we were waiting for it to be proved in the field and let other people take the licks on, trying it first, so.
That system is cost-free. However, it was tested by many police departments throughout the U.S. It is highly controversial. A ring has been sold. Whether you can access it or not access it without authorization, whether somebody can grant it to you, whether your camera becomes a public record at your house, seem to be big issues. I don't have a problem sharing with you the video from my house, but I, in this environment as your chief, will not enter into an agreement with Ring to even consider sharing any of your video with everybody else.
Okay. I think you had me at the word controversial. I don't think we need much more of that in this little town.
It just, the discussion became very, very convoluted, and there were so many asks that I didn't feel comfortable putting. It's a great tool, don't get me wrong, but the risk-benefit analysis didn't pan out for the people that I work for. How's that?
Okay. Good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other discussion about the telephone and
No.
radio?
Gotta have it, he's done the research.
Okay, moving forward. Fire hydrant repair and replacement at $30,000.
Okay, as you know, we have replaced a lot of our fire hydrants, and we have exercised them and done the necessary repairs in the past 2 fiscal years. When we finish this fiscal year that we're currently in, we'll get back to our regular maintenance program of every year, and that will cost us about $30,000 a year. That's to do all the exercising, the painting, whatever we need to do to keep those maintained on a continual basis.
So going forward, we're basically looking at a line item of $30,000 a year.
That's correct, and it will move potentially from the capital budget into the regular maintenance budget.
And the painting and the testing and all that stuff, that is something that is done in-house, correct? We're not
Yes.
using an outside contractor.
We're using an outside contractor for replacements because we don't have any employees that are certified in water, potable water.
Okay. And how many are we replacing?
Are you talking about this current fiscal year?
No, just in general, I mean, I thought the bulk of that was done.
It will be this year.
It will be
correct.
done this year.
Yes, and then we're gonna move on to our continual maintenance program to do the whole town, and that
Okay.
will be about $30,000 per year.
Okay.
So some of that, to answer your question, some of that is done in-house. If it just needs to be exercised and painted, we do it in-house. If it has to be replaced, we have to do it, we use our contractor for that.
Okay.
Line tech?
Again, I think you can see the theme that I'm going on is anything that we can start pulling back in-house really
Right.
needs to be done. All right, moving on. Number 6, pump station replacement repair at Tropical and Woolbright. This is the one where we had a little bit of a crossover of the funds, correct? Okay. So is it still $80,000?
Yes, it's 80,000 in this one, and I removed 20,000 from item number 7. The reason why it's not 80,000 removed is because when we originally had looked at the replacement program for this, it was on a shorter term basis. So we started saving 20,000 per year for that. The public works supervisor and the town engineer have noted that we may need to have a replacement sooner than expected, so we boosted it up to 80 so that we'll have the necessary funds when it needs to be replaced. We have two stations, Tropical and Woolbright.
So how is the $80,000 divided between those two different stations? Is it 50 for Tropical and 30 for, I mean, can we look at it that
Sure.
way or is no?
Well, this is Lisa. They're identical stations. There are 10 submersible pumps, very expensive pumps that work at Tropical and at Woolbright in total, 5 on each. There are 2 different sizes, but they're basically identical, and we did that on purpose so that if we needed parts or replacements, we wanted to keep the systems similar so it was easy to run and understand. These pumps have been working for 15 years, and we have not replaced one of them. which makes me very happy to say. However, 15 years of a pump running, we're probably long overdue. I hate to say that, but in order for us to be proactive and the commission being proactive, asking us to look at a capital plan over time, we felt that it was important to put some monies aside because it could be any day now that we have to pull one of those pumps out. Of course, the first thing would be, can we fix it or repair it? However, that might not be the case, and we might need to replace it. So we're putting monies away and being more proactive in case one of them fails to work.
Have we had a lot of maintenance on them?
Not on the pumps themselves.
On the stations, yes.
On the stations, but not on the pumps themselves so far. Nothing substantial.
So 15 years, we're getting a lot of work out of those.
Right,
So-
you know, think of it as a car motor. I mean, but this is even
water.
bigger, and it's submersed in water, so
Thinking ahead.
it's amazing to even think that 15 years without replacing one entirely is
Crazy.
Do we have them on a
amazing.
maintenance schedule? Are they cleaned regularly, inspected regularly?
So we monitor them almost on a daily basis between the Public Works Department and my office to see how they are performing. How are they going on and off, and how it works with the SCADA system to see if there's any issues. We haven't had any issues of any major kind where we had to send a crane. You have to send a crane in there to literally pull these things out. We haven't really had that
Oh, so we
happen.
can't squirt it down with a hose and make sure it's clean? No, okay.
We can try.
No, because deferred maintenance has been our Achilles heel.
Right.
And, if it is a pump that you could usually get a 25-year life cycle out of, and we haven't maintained it, then it drops it back down to 15. So I was just trying to determine,
Right.
not that we haven't always done what we're supposed to do, but just to see, is this 15 years really supposed to be 25 years? Or is it, what is the average life cycle on something like this?
Under the ground, with the
Well,
water.
I think it's already exceeded its
That's the guess I'm
lifespan.
getting.
So,
You need a bigger hose.
so the way this is written, I think was confusing us, and now we're sort of getting to the bottom of it. I'm still a little confused. Is it $80,000 to replace just one pump?
Or all
No,
10?
this is a savings. So this is a savings. If you look on your 5-year capital plan, we're saving money so that when this happens, we can afford to replace
So-
it.
Sure. So what is the total overall after 5 years for replacement?
Of both of them, of all of them? I think that's
Well,
getting
what's
us
in the
prepared
capital
for when
plan?
one happens.
Well, it's right. It's being prepared if and when, right now, we don't need any of it
Right.
today.
So
But
the
it's-
total is $340,000 eventually.
Right, which could be,
If it all went
which
wrong.
could be, 2 brand-new pumps or the repair of 6 of them or some combination
So it's not the
thereof.
replacement of all 10?
No.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. This is another scary number.
Yeah, no,
So, but we don't know necessarily that we'll need that money.
Correct.
correct.
So this might be one of those items we can move into contingency.
It's not gonna matter where you put it. It's-
I understand
It's
that.
either in capital or contingency, it doesn't matter where.
Right, it's available.
But
Yeah.
I would not recommend just putting it in contingency, because this is a 5-year capital plan. This is part of the plan to replace the system when it's needed.
And last year, it looks like we only put
I understand.
20,
20
Right.
towards it.
yep. And in speaking with the town engineer and the public works supervisor, they thought that was not enough based on current conditions
And the age and just the chances of what's
Right.
going to give, it's going to give at some point.
Now, do we need to fund the full 80? No. We don't. Pick a number.
Well, how much
This
does
is
it cost to replace a pump?
I don't have that exact price to replace a pump, because the first thing that we would do is to see if we can repair the pump. we have not taken those pumps out at all.
You don't have
Because
no
they've been working. We're not spending any significant amount of money on the pumps themselves. Now, we've been spending some maintenance monies for the wet well, because that's in here. That's part of maintenance, to make sure that the wet well's clear of debris and sand and silt. And we spend money every year for the telemetry to make sure that the pumps go on when they're supposed to go on, and the systems within the pump station, like the floats and the SCADA system, so that when the water levels become a certain elevation, the proper pumps go on, and then the proper pumps come off and go on and come off. So do we need this $80,000 today? We don't. This was more born out of being proactive in the commission stating 2 years ago that we should stop being so reactive every time something happens to our infrastructure.
However, let me do a little bit more research on this and maybe get proposals on how much it would cost to replace a pump, and then bring information back to you,
Might
so
be
you
a
have a
better way
more
to balance it out.
educated decision.
We
on
we
what
can
you
definitely
wanna
do that. The, actually, the company has just notified us not too long ago to let them know that they merged. It's still the same company, which is great, and they are familiar with our pumps. But they are now located in Broward County, so we can get a cost for a total replacement, so we have a better understanding as to a full replacement.
Because, I mean, without that knowledge, the 340, maybe just one pump, one
Right.
out of 10, and if all 9 others are the exact same age.
Exactly,
Well, you could have 5 pumps on tropical go out, and what's that, 5 times 8, right?
yeah,
That would blow a hole in the budget.
Yes, it would.
yeah, so let me get you more information, definitely.
You can ask them when you get the information, this is Martin here. When you get the information, I can tell you this from, we're using pumps in our vineyard, and what we do for our operation is we have on a scheduled maintenance the rebuilding of the pumps. Those are also irrigation pumps that, big irrigation pumps, they get rebuilt on a regular basis before they actually fail. And pumps, and especially the wet well pumps, they can be, typically, those pumps can be rebuilt. So there are certain things that you just change out before they fail. The problem is that when they fail, then it's ruined, then you really need to replace it. There's no, or very rarely is there fixing it to it. It's usually a blowout as a blowout, and it becomes a replacement. So that would be something that I would like to get these guys, whoever we have that deals with those pumps, get them in and ask them if we should just pull out individual pumps and actually have them rebuilt. That might come a whole lot cheaper than replacing an entire
You
pump.
mean take a look at having them rebuilt before,
Before they fail, yeah,
Before
while
they
they're still
fail.
operating.
Right, so a proposal on replacement and then another proposal on rebuilding.
But can I ask a question here? If one of there's 5 submersible down at Tropical. If one goes out, the other 4 can still handle the situation, correct?
Yes, both of you, Martin and Steve, good points, and those are things that we would look at for sure. So we can ask the pump manufacturer to give us that information. And Commissioner Cos, you are correct. We do have redundancy, so it's
Right.
not like if a pump goes out tomorrow, I don't want to scare anyone that we're not going to have sufficient stormwater capture, because it is built into the design that there is redundancy. So, for example, there are 3 40 horsepower pumps at each station. If one goes out, the other 2 can still work. If 2 go out, the third one can work. If they all go out, there's there's another level of pumps, 100 horsepower pumps, 2 of those can kick on as well. So there is definitely redundancy in place for safety purposes.
Thanks.
Okay.
So is that officially on hold till next meeting?
Yes.
I think so.
More information, right?
Yeah.
Just for the record, there's a typo in there, it says in one of the paragraphs, major overall, that should be overall, I think. On the
Which number?
page 3, at the end of the first paragraph,
Major overall instead of major overhaul.
page 8.
I got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, as long as we're having fun with pumps, let's move on to paving, grading, and drainage, because we're back kind of in the same thing. So the first up out of this breakdown of $285,000 is the Tropical Drive Pump Station Generator Upgrade. So,
Okay, so about 15 years ago, when we designed these stations, just like the pumps, we designed the stations to be very similar. 5 pumps on Tropical, 5 pumps on Woolbright. We designed a 230 kW generator for Tropical and a 230 kW generator for Woolbright. They were identical. Actually, if you look out the door, I think the one that we're using for Town Hall is a 230 kW, which was supposed to have gone to the Tropical station. So, there are many reasons why the town chose to not purchase a 230 kW for the Tropical station. The generator is being housed at Turtle Beach within an easement, a very, very tight space. And the commission before all of you were aware that the generator is not the appropriate size for the Tropical station to work the way it was designed, identical to the Woolbright station. It has come before the commission in the past, and I felt that the need should come before the commission now. You all are fairly new with respect to the 15 years of dealing with a very complex pumping station. And so, working with staff, we felt that now's the time to look into the possibility of purchasing a 230 kW generator. Now, understand that we've come a long way in 15 years. When that generator got pulled up to Town Hall and to the Woolbright station, I think most of the residents in town were ready to shoot me and fire me and get rid of the commission. They're very big and bulky and ugly, and we painted them green and we put vegetation around them and we did everything we could to hide them, if you will. The good news is 15 years have gone by. Technology's a little better in that we can get a 230 kW generator smaller in size that could possibly fit in the small space at Turtle Beach so that we can upgrade the Tropical station to work the way it should in cases when there's a power failure. Take the was it a 150? I think it's a 150 kW there that's currently there. Move that generator to Coconut because Coconut Lane has a small pumping station whose generator has seen its life, and utilize the existing one over to Coconut, and then maybe just sell the one that's at Coconut. So that's the thought. I did some quick, I'm getting good at buying things online. And so I went online just briefly this morning and put in a 230 kW generator. Can I buy one now? How much would it be? And I have one on eBay, delivery free. This has about 5,000 hours on it though. And it's $49,000, not a new one. The numbers seems high in our proposal because, well, this is a used one. This one doesn't have, we have to put a tank underneath it. Then we have to make it work electronically. The SCADA system would have to be worked in such a way that this reads the alarms and the floats and all that. So when you add these things up, it can be a fairly significant amount of money.
Well, we've got a range of 100 to 150. We've got to tighten that up.
Okay, so we did not spend a lot of time estimating this, and I'll tell you why. Because we've spent a lot of time, first of all, 15 years ago, when there's no appetite by the commission to choose to do any further investigation, all time spent was dropped. This is the first time in probably a decade that I've come before you with this. So if there's no appetite to investigate further, then we won't spend any more time on it. If there is, then we would spend some time with some of the manufacturers to get some costs. It's a little tricky because it involves electrical folks, it involves telemetry people, it involves getting a tank put on the bottom of it. So there's a lot of moving parts to it. So that's why it's broad-based right now.
But help me understand, if the generator goes out and these pumps, if we have, and this is, I'm presuming, mainly emergency situations, we have no power, the generator it goes kaput, the pumps aren't working, then, I mean, we have flood, basically. And does that flood enter the houses on Tropical? I mean,
Okay.
it's one thing for the water to rise in the detention pond and not necessarily intrude into anybody's personal residence. It's another thing on Tropical, and this is, going back many, many years, where you have pictures of people literally walking down the middle of the street and the water's up to their knees, and it's, so, I mean, is that the bottom line here?
Well, so the system's designed to have redundancy in and of itself, okay? So if we have a pump having an issue, it's not an issue because we have redundancy within the design. If the power goes out, then the generators will kick on. Now there's 2 generators. And
When you say 2 generators, you mean one
for
tropical?
Woolbright and one for Tropical. So, and the system is to some extent looped in. So if one generator were to fail, now this is after the electricity goes out, the generator doesn't work, but that's fairly, I don't know how that would happen, but if it did, we have the generator from the other pump station that would continue to work. So
Powering both sets of pumps?
no, it would just, they would pump, one pumps, the 230 kW pumps Woolbright, and the other 230 kW would pump Tropical. It can't pump, it doesn't have enough juice to run 2 stations, one generator.
So just to make a long story short, what we're asking for here is to go from 150 kW to a 230 kW generator. We're not asking for a backup generator, right?
Correct. It's just
So-
an upgrade from what we have currently.
Right.
Which
So
only hits one pump.
No, it's good for the
The one-
entire
no, the
pump
150.
station.
The 150 does the entire
So
station?
currently, when Tropical loses power, ultimately, you can utilize one large pump.
Right,
When
that's what I'm looking at.
the Woolbright station and how the stations were designed, when the electricity goes out, 2 of the large pumps can pump simultaneously.
So isn't this the perfect item to hit the pause button on?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
Right. It's not going to help.
I feel like there's a whack-a-mole
Well,
going
is it-
on.
Well, no,
Is
I
there-
think,
Go ahead, Chief. You can explain it better than I.
well, what I think you want maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want us to bring you quotes to tell you exactly how much it will cost for this, because there's a range of 100 to 150, correct?
And I
So you
also,
want us to get
but I also
closer.
want to know, and we will get through this after we go through each and every one, in terms of prioritization, if this is really important, I need, because I'm not an engineer, I need
Right.
the engineer to tell me, this is much more important than the pipe grouting, because it will
Right.
cause, if it doesn't work, or if it's under capacity, it's gonna cause flooding, potential flooding of 90 of your residents
And
on
is that
Tropical
the
Drive.
deal, basically? It's under capacity, the generator we have now is under capacity, and we're talking about improving it to the 230, which would
Correct.
then, if it has to hook in, actually do the work like the Woolbright station does. That takes care of the
That's
whole thing.
Correct.
Where we are here on Tropical, the underpowered generator only takes care of part of the pump system, so that's not good.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to get the,
But what's driving the conversation is the fact that generators are now smaller. You see what I mean?
So we can get
So
a
we
bigger
wouldn't
one.
even be having this conversation. It just sounds like the perfect pause item, that's all.
but the size of the generator, because the 230 one, they couldn't put there.
Right,
because
right,
it was
right. Now they're
But
smaller
now
in
you-
size.
Which means that every time they had to use the 150, you weren't getting full system, right? Go ahead. How?
Maybe I can clear some things up.
Please.
The system was designed to run on that green thing out there,
Right,
not the little box.
right.
There was a compromise made which put the pumping system for Tropical in a compromised position. That's my personal and professional opinion after having swam out to try and stop the flooding. The truth is, that system has failed us on multiple occasions because it is not properly sized for that pump setup as it was designed. No fault of anybody's, it is what it is. Yes, we have had multiple power failures at that location where the generator did not come on, therefore the pumps did not work, and but for someone swimming, as I like to say, in their Speedo at 2 o'clock in the morning who came in because there was no one else to do it, yes, you would have flooded 9 houses on Tropical Drive within a matter of 5 or 10 minutes if we hadn't made it in the nick of time. It is an essential item. It does remove a tremendous amount of water that obviously that's the belly of the road. You've all driven Tropical. It's a terrible location to have a failure of any pump system. And if, in this case, one pump, as you just got done talking about replacing pumps, let's say that the generator that we have does kick on and that pump goes out. It's not capable of switching automatically to another pump, and it can't handle a 100 horsepower pump, and therefore you don't have full use of your system. Probably, and I know I'm passionate about this because I've waited out there myself, you probably don't have use of your system when you absolutely must have it. That's the problem. Perhaps there's a way to repurpose the generator down there for somewhere else to improve another section, and you can get more bang for your buck. But I would tell you that based upon my experience in the last 10 years, that's a critical infrastructure piece that needs to be seriously considered.
But
The-
it's,
The plan is to repurpose it for the Coconut Station,
Take
which is
Coconut.
older, and then we will remove that pump, which is a lot
Right.
older.
Right.
well, one question to you, or the engineer. It says here there are 2 40 horsepower pumps. So if, you see what I'm
Right.
saying? You're saying it can't power the 100 horsepower. What happened to the other 40 horsepower?
So the 40 horsepower goes on so that we're not burning out a huge pump, right? So we have what's called a duty pump, if you will. It's a 40 horsepower pump. It's smaller. So for smaller rainfall events, the 40 horsepower will go on first. If it gets a little bit more, then 2 40s will go on. That's 80. If the 80 can't handle it, then the 100 horse will kick on. And ultimately, in the worst case scenario, the pump station currently on Woolbright will run 2 100 horsepower pumps. Those are huge pumps, and carry with them, I believe, like 5,000 gallons per minute per pump. It could probably suck your pool dry in 30 seconds. And so they're identical only until the generators, only until you lose power, like the chief said. When you lose power, then the tropical station gets compromised.
So I think we're getting a little bit into the weeds. Rather than just push the pause button, Vice Mayor, what I'd like to see is if there is agreement to get tighter pricing on something like this. The fact of using something used versus brand new, I like, and I want to see that thing carried maybe throughout some of the other capital purchases that we were looking at too. So I don't see how we can not do it. And you need to look no further than last week with those rain events where we had, what, 6
Sure.
inches and a... But
we're not really addressing the real problem. If the power goes out and the generator goes out, it doesn't really matter if it's a 230 or a 150. So the redundancy that you're asking for isn't there. That's all I'm getting at. But I'll gladly listen to prices.
Looking for the
instead
bigger
of saying-
pump to do the bigger, looking for the bigger generator. which we
There
couldn't
actually is another redundancy. It's called Big Blue. Do we still have Big Blue, Chief?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so before we even had these 2 stations in place, we have a mobile pump. We call it Big Blue. It's out in the back. We've used it before. I've declared emergencies before in all these years, maybe a couple times, where public safety has to come out, unfortunately, move that pump over to Tropical. And do you want to say what you do after that, Chief? No.
Swim back to the car.
Swim back.
Hope that it runs.
We utilize a hose, and in an emergency situation where we have nothing, Big Blue will work with a hose over the dune, and we take care of our residents as the way we should. If in fact all of those things were to fail.
Right.
That's
Your
all.
Last case scenario.
Yeah, your emergency last case scenario.
Okay, can I address Mr. Cos's question about the redundancy issue? We understand that the generator is, or should be, the weakest link. It currently is, to the point that it can't provide automatic redundancy to that station because it's not sized correctly. So in many occasions, because we have exceeded the capacity of the station, or of the generator capacity, it tries to pull too much power, and it tries to run, and it shuts itself down, even though the station would run. So that requires manual interaction, which, if you recall what we had last week, when you have a rain with 6 inches in 90 minutes,
Yeah, it's crazy.
that truly doesn't give us enough time to put Big Blue in place, and we no longer pump over the dune. We don't have the hose to do that. We have a system that pushes it to Tropical. But the idea behind having the generator is that that's sized properly is that, as you said earlier, if you have a 40 horsepower pump that fails and you have to replace it, there's another one there that it's not an emergency. You can take that out, you can service it. It's not, I need to do it today because if I don't, it's going to flood. The idea behind the generator is if it's sized properly and it runs that pump station properly, in all but the very, very, very worst case scenario, we would be able to run that pump station for days and days on end without power, which we've had to do in clear skies, actually, on sometimes, and run it efficiently, 40s and 100s. So
It sounds like it's an essential item, but we can look at the pricing a little tighter, right?
Yes.
We can do a little bit more
Right.
research because you have people that are.
So if it's the pleasure of this commission, which would be, in my opinion, the right thing to do, if it's the pleasure of the commission for us to spend some more time tweaking those numbers and seeing if we can get some estimates a little closer than a $50,000 spread, then we can do that and have it before you before the next budget hearing.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. And thank you for the education. I mean, a lot of this happened when some of us weren't even in
Right.
town, so.
Right.
If I may. So with the 230 kW, we can technically hook up 2 pumps?
Two of the 100 horsepower pumps can be utilized simultaneously.
On the big generator, but not on the current 150?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, so basically what that means is this is one of the redundancy things where if one of the 100 fails for whatever reason, in case of a power failure, the other 100 would still be running.
Yes, that could be a possibility, but we would like both of them running at the same time.
But if one of them fails for whatever reason,
Right.
which could happen,
The other one,
would be running.
sure.
Whereas right now, if that one that is hooked up to the generator is failing today, none of them are.
No, it switches to the other 40.
The big ones don't go.
Right.
Just the 40s go.
Well, okay, so,
Today we have a power failure. Today, we have 150 kW generator. Today we have a power failure.
mhm.
The
So-
150 is hooked up to a 100 horsepower pump.
So what's happening is when you're, like if you're plugging in your blow dryer in your socket and the socket doesn't have enough power, you're gonna have a problem. It's not gonna work properly, right? So what's happening is this generator, because it's not the proper size, is doing weird things. It's shutting down. Sometimes I think it shuts down entirely, right, Chief? Sometimes one will work. Sometimes they have to do what they do, swimming in the water, to make one of them go on. If it's a 40, we'll take the 40. If we can't get the 100 to go on, it just doesn't work right. The system doesn't work properly.
Let's get some tighter, excuse me for interrupting, but
Sorry.
we need to move on. Let's get some tighter numbers on it, and then we will balance it, because we're playing Russian roulette.
Yes.
And we've done that for a long time. So, but there may be other things that are more
Right.
Russian than roulette,
Right.
that we need
And
to
it's
spend
been
our
going
money on.
this way for 15 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's go on to Inlet K Island pipe grouting, if we can.
Okay.
Okay, so we all know from the report that was given to us from Higgins Engineering that there are some subsurface challenges on Inlet K Island. And so this is based on every year, some pipe slips from itself at the joint or slips from the manhole or the catch basin, and we need continual repair. In some cases, we would do a slip lining where if a corrugated metal pipe, for example, is corroded to the point where we can't put a Band-Aid on it, then we'll come in and reline the inside of a pipe. This is monies that we believe, based on historical information, that we will need just to maintain the infrastructure stormwater for Inlet K Island by itself.
Okay. And what did we, oh, God. What did we spend last year? I mean, I just want to make sure that, I mean, the expense itself sounds reasonable. I just want to make sure that if there's history that, you know,
We didn't spend anything on the Inlet K Island for that particular item last year, because if you look at Lisa's list, it shows you what we had in 2019-20, and you don't see any Inlet K Island pipe grouting or anything on the list for that.
So I can tell you that last year we had a capital project, which was the outfall between 54 and 55 Spanish River Drive. So that was a capital project in order to repair the outfall. So what we found from after repairing the outfall, that the pipes upstream of the outfall There was still infiltration, groundwater going into the system. And so we spent probably, I think, about $6,000 this year videoing and repairing that system. So that system is totally complete and working properly.
Okay. Any other questions for the engineer?
This particular item does not address the situation that is currently happening in front of the
Right, so that's another capital project before you get on the island on Inlet K Drive.
Yeah, if you look at Lisa's list, Martin, that one is number 19 on the list.
Okay, let's go on to the cul-de-sac down on Eleuthera. Number one, it's a very large range again, which
Right.
I'm sure you're trying to see if there's appetite. One of the things, and I drive by these different areas to take a look. One of the things that continually surprises me, I think is probably not the accurate word, but when we do all these repairs and when we see where the flooding is, 9 times out of 10, all I need to do is go like this, and I see that there's a house that's either at the top of a ridge or something else, and I can look, and at least from a layman's, without getting out of the car and going onto their property, I don't see any swales on their property. I don't see any drains on their property. I don't see anything. So I'm a little hesitant to keep repairing areas and putting town money into them when it's not going to solve the entire problem, because part of the problem is exacerbated by the homes that surround it. So this cul-de-sac in particular is a very good example of that.
It is.
Because every house is elevated, some of them 15, 20 feet. Where do we find that even balance to make sure that we're doing what we need to do as a town with infrastructure, but without reaching out to residents, even if it is not something we can legally force them to do, but at least ask and give them some solutions to do some stuff on their own. You're never going to solve this problem until those houses have some type of drainage. It's just not going to happen.
So the houses, we don't mandate existing homes to follow. We haven't. It's been about 20 years, though, which is great, that we've been actually looking at every new home and every major renovated home to make sure that they hold their stormwater on site. Some of those houses have been there for a long time and probably do drain into our system. However, we came on board around 2000 because there was no review actually that made sure that the new construction coming online would have the proper infrastructure on site. So then you have the challenge of the older homes that were built in the 50s and 60s that are at a much lower elevation than those higher ones, particularly the higher ones at the cul-de-sac. They always seem to be much higher. But as soon as you come around the cul-de-sac, there's always an older house that prohibits us to raise the road because we don't want to adversely impact our road drainage onto them. So it is a balance. And that road has been raised already in elevation. But the good news with this item actually is we think that the issue here is the replacement of a valve at the end of the outfall. So we might not need all of this money that we're proposing in here.
I hate to interrupt, Mayor, but I have to head out to a doctor's appointment. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, on the remaining issues, may I ask, numbered all the way through 13, could you just follow up with the town manager and give her?
Yeah, I went through them with her. I'll send her a note.
Thank you.
Thank you, take care.
I hope you feel better.
Me too.
I do too.
Feel
I
better.
know.
Yeah, feel better.
Okay, so
So,
in actuality, this may be a valve. I mean, what I stated is obviously a bigger issue, and I understand a lot of it has to do with older inventory, housing inventory. But I also feel like, and I'm gonna, after budget, continue to follow up on this, that we are not doing a necessarily as strong a position as a town to make our residents involved in projects that could help. And it's just,
Well-
if this is a valve at the end, that's fine, but if they're looking for another $100,000, I'd very much like to know what has been spent thus far here, because I remember it's a sizable amount. And it's a solution that we're never gonna have a final solution as long as those houses are raised and not doing anything about their water. So, sure.
Can we, this is Mark, can we possibly find a solution where instead of spending, say, worst case scenario, we would have to spend $100,000 to resolve that drainage issue. Would there be a way where we can approach these, I think that on that cul-de-sac, there's 4 or 5 homes? I think it's 4. Where we can approach the homeowners and maybe do a joint venture with them where, we're providing certain materials like the drainage pipes, the underground drainage pipes and the rock that we can buy in bulk. And they would have to pay for labor and redoing some of the landscaping on that property. And we're basically going in and we're somewhat relieving the situation permanently by giving them a benefit of keeping the stormwater on their properties. And Lisa and I, we went last week to the Inlet K Drive situation that we're having tonight at the meeting. And there's very clearly, one of the buildings there is dumping the entire roof water onto their own parking lot, which then drives everything.
All the
into
hard
our
surface, send it
road,
right on
into
down.
the public road. And creating the situation where we now have to spend $70,000 in redoing the house.
we
So, maybe there's a.
We need to continue to do that. We have asked in the past, and Tracy could tell you, we've asked residents to allow us to put in more outfalls or to repair outfalls that were put in by somebody else in the past. We've had no success with a homeowner allowing us to have an easement so we can legally access the property and legally maintain the system. We've had no success. That doesn't mean that we can't keep asking.
Well,
We-
but it also, and again, I don't want to get into the weeds because we need to finish this up, else we're going to just
Stay.
eat animal crackers and be here at 6. But it doesn't always have to, solutions always don't have to be done through an easement. I believe what you're talking about is you are saying, let's get some economies of scale and let's get some buy-in and we'll help cover a little, you help cover a little, and it's
Look for
yours.
some
It's
options
not
that we
ours, we're
could
not
do a
going on it, we're not
public-private thing.
maintaining it, we're not doing anything, but
Partnership.
so I'd like to suggest maybe just for time issue on this cul-de-sac, hopefully it is only a valve at the end, but I mean, this number needs to be way tightened up. And so I'd like to push the pause completely on this until we figure out really what's going on.
We'll get you some quotes.
Okay. And that leads us to the Woolbright Pump Station refurbishment and replacement.
I'm sorry, can I just say one thing on Woolbright and then we're
Yes.
done?
Sure.
Okay. We had that large number in there. We were hoping that it was just a valve. You all just approved Foster Marine for a continuing contract. They're the ones that would replace the valve on the outfall. That should happen very soon. You all just approved them as a vendor. So they're going to come in and put the valve on, and then we're going to monitor it before we even spend another penny on that road.
Okay, but for budgeting, I need to know if the number's 10 or if the number's 100.
It might be 0.
It might be 0. I like that even better.
Even better.
All right, so let's move on to the Wheelwright station.
A pump.
A pump.
Nope.
No, that's redundant.
We already did it.
We already did it.
That one's
Okay.
done.
So D, we can just scratch
Yep.
right through D. Yay. Okey doke. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
I'm not shooting the messenger, I'm just,
So-
those are
Yeah, I
those are the
know.
type of things that
I
just
know.
make me hot under the collar as I drive around town.
I understand.
Okay, number 8, replace public work utility truck, $45,000. I get that the 99 truck is not safe. Is this something that could be purchased used? And would it make any difference, any material difference in pricing?
We can check.
I would also, I mean, coming from the car world, I think one of the things that you do is when you buy a vehicle brand new, you lose immediately a lot of money.
Yep.
The only advantage that we have to it is that it's under warranty, and if we can buy something that is 2-3 years old with a work bed on it, it's probably going to cost us close to half.
We'll look into it.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement that the truck's got to come. The question is, how much
How
is the
much?
truck going to cost?
Yep.
All right, wet well maintenance for pump stations, $15,000, number 9.
I actually talked about that already. That's basically to clean out the actual box that the water sits in because debris and silt accumulate, and we need to clean that out so that the system works at its best capacity.
And so this is for 3 stations, so they're basically $5,000 apiece?
Right. There are 3 stations. If we can get all 3 done, that would be great.
But that's what I'm asking, the
Is that the amount?
15,000 is for all 3, it's not 15,000 per.
I believe we can get all 3 done for 15,000 if we mobilize the vendor, which would probably be a Televac or Hinterland or Foster Marine. We could probably do all 3.
And how often is maintenance required on these stations?
It says perpetual.
Yeah, well, this was part of the 5-year capital plan.
We try to do them, if we can, once a year. I don't know if we're actually doing them once a year, but we
We're
probably
not.
need to be doing them once a
We're not,
year,
we're not.
in my opinion.
We probably need to. Is that what you're saying?
we probably
So chances are it hasn't been done this past year.
Correct.
It was not done this past year.
Correct.
Okay, here's another Russian roulette. All right, I don't have any problem with that. I just wanted clarification that it wasn't 15 per, so,
Right.
okay,
No.
thank you. Any other comments on
No.
9? Okay. All right, let the fun begin. Number 10, we are up to a newly equipped police vehicle. Couple of questions I'm sure that are going to come up. So I know you don't like the idea of any more pencils being sharpened, so I will start, and you will continue that daggered look at me.
I was thinking the same thing.
I need to understand, last year, when we went through this fund, I have an April 2nd, 2019 budget justification from you, Chief, that talked about adding a patrol vehicle, which I believe we did. And at that time, we were at a fleet of 8 patrol vehicles. So this year, all of a sudden, we've got 10 vehicles. So I just need to understand, and there is an explanation, how we went from 8 to 10, and then how the 5 that are used for officers are utilized, because it's my understanding that there's only 3 people on patrol for a shift. So that's a lot to throw at you, so I apologize, but.
No, it's very, very simple. Number 1,
Okay,
there are 9 police vehicles. There is 1 alternate use police vehicle, which is an LSV, and there are 2 Polaris side-by-sides. That is the police department's fleet.
Hold on, so there's 9 vehicles, not 10?
So there are 9 patrol-style automobiles. There are 9 automobiles. There is a LSV, which is numbered as 1802, which is a
What's an LSV?
low-speed vehicle, the GEM car. There are 2 Polaris ATVs. One is a side-by-side, one is the sit-on-top. That's the best explanation I can give you of those 2.
No, but it says, no, and still I'm missing it. There's 10 vehicles, 5 for officers, 1 for the chief, 2 for unmarked, 1 for the building official, 1 for a community official. That's 10. So,
Okay, so you included the building official in the police department's complement of vehicles.
okay, so that's what I'm saying.
Because if you did that, there would actually be 13 vehicles for the town because you have 2 maintenance trucks. So that's, I think, the confusion. You're putting the building official's vehicle in there probably because the only way the building official got a car was because we gave him one from the police department.
Okay, so there's
But
really
that
9.
wasn't adding to our fleet. That was
Okay, so
taking that to
again,
them.
how did we go from 8 last year to 9 this year?
Because on vehicle 563, which is the Dodge Charger, okay, was a donated vehicle. The person that donated it had made an agreement when he donated it, and it was supposed to go back and be sold back to him. He changed his mind and said, you know what, after rethinking this, I really like the fact that that vehicle is being used by the community policing. It sets them apart, and I want you to use it as long as you can.
Okay.
So when that vehicle goes away, unless the commission chooses to buy another vehicle to replace it, that vehicle goes away and you go back to normal. Of these vehicles that you have here, you also need to remember that 3 of them were donations over the last 4 years. So we put them in our fleet. That's the only one that we kept, knowing that it eventually will break to the point where we will auction it and be done with it.
Okay, so out of the 9 that we have, it includes this loan car, so we really can't necessarily consider it part of,
The LSV, I don't consider a police patrol vehicle. It is an alternate.
no,
Energy?
the Charger.
The Charger is basically
It's on loan,
donated,
though,
and it's going to go away.
and it's gonna go away.
As soon as it gets beyond its viable life and we can't afford to fix it, if we get a major repair, we'll say, see ya.
All right, so of the 9, inclusive of this loaner car that will go away, help me understand the 5 for regular and routine patrol functions on an everyday basis.
So on an everyday basis, okay, our normal complement of officers, if we are lucky, is a sergeant and 2 patrol officers for the use of those vehicles. Then we do a shift change, and we have another 3 officers come on. So we're using 1 or 2 vehicles dependent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So having that many vehicles, number 1, allows us to put 3 officers on the street and have a spare if something should happen, or use it for one of the lieutenants, or if I need to call somebody in for some additional coverage like we have, unfortunately, consistently for the last 3 months. It gives me the opportunity to put them on there, and if something is in the shop, it allows us to maintain coverage. That's the minimum level that I'm comfortable with to provide you the service level that you've told me you want. The unmarked vehicle, the white vehicle, is shared vehicle. We have an old spare that would go to auction. We intend to move one of our newer cars to the building official since his is older and cycle it through that way. The goal in purchasing vehicles is not to just purchase vehicles. It's to get the biggest bang for our buck. So we can repurpose something to the building official that's a little older but has some warranty, get rid of that one if we see them on the road. This one's got a tremendous maintenance log. Maybe it's not worth doing it. We kind of consider that all the time. But once again, to bring back the last 3 months with COVID and then what's going on tonight and last night, it gives us tremendous ability to use our resources very, very wisely and to the benefit of the town. And without those resources available here, it really constrains our ability to do some of the things that we've had to do over the last several months, as an example, and during hurricanes. So I'm comfortable with the proposal that the town manager has made, finally, of one at this point. That will just be delaying our purchases by 1 year, because I asked you for one vehicle last year. And so basically, we've just regressed to 1 year before we are now. Next year, I would anticipate I will come and ask for two, depending upon what the maintenance is. I will tell you that we have been extremely lucky with the Ford Explorer platform as compared to some of the other vehicles that we've owned, a Chevy Malibu, Caprice, whatever it was called. And we needed 5 cars when we had that one because it was never on the road. It was always in the shop. So we've done well with the platform we're using now, and Ford has proven itself. I always take into consideration that the next model year might be the one that doesn't work that way. So I'm very cautious and conservative when it comes to not having enough resources on hand. I can tell you that yesterday was a perfect example of us searching for things that we could have had that cost money that we didn't need for years, and all of a sudden it popped up. It was very apparent yesterday. We did well. These vehicles, I hate to get behind the curve on the ability for the officers to respond anywhere. I'm sorry, I do.
On the cars that are used by you, Chief, and the building official and other things, is there ever a cost benefit to looking at a lease situation? I know that the officers' cars are very different because you have to trick them out with all kinds of special stuff, but
We can lease anything you want to. We can lease marked police vehicles if that's what you want. I have a contact that will be more than happy to lease and finance you a fully equipped police car. I understand the cost-benefit analysis for some agencies, but it also puts you in a position where, you know, with all due respect to what I'm asking for, if you choose not to give me a car this year, I'll make do with what I have. If we had 5 lease vehicles and you chose not to give me a car this year and I had to turn my lease vehicles in, I start from scratch. This gives us the ability to adjust as we go along and still maintain. It may cost us, I may have to put a transmission in a car for $5,000 if financial times are that difficult, and I may have to drive jalopies, but at least I'm driving. So I'm leery in small town policing of leasing. In a former life, I went through a leasing experience with unmarked vehicles. It didn't pan out to pay off in the end. In the beginning, it was a great savings. In the end, it didn't pan out at all. We ended up paying more because of how we treat lease cars and mileage and things like that in the end than what we saved, really. So I'm leery of doing that, especially here, because our call volume goes up and down, our manpower goes up and down.
well, it looks like we're on a 3-year cycle would be the preference. And
So-
now we've moved somewhat to a 4-year cycle on some of them,
So
correct?
I told you last year that I was willing to try the 4-year cycle, and we gave it a shot. And so far, so by giving 1 car instead of 2, which I asked for to go back to the 3-year cycle, you're in effect going to that 4-year cycle, and we will readjust our due date schedule accordingly with that.
So I understand, by not approving bringing another vehicle into the fleet, we are ostensibly then moving the entire
are-
fleet into a 4-year cycle.
You are stagnating the cycle by 2 years.
Okay.
We're gonna have 1 5-year and we're gonna have.
Yes, you're stagnating by 2 years.
But if Chief is driving the 1 5-year and it's not a patrol
So
vehicle,
what
I'm not
happens-
as concerned.
So what happens is the rotation for the vehicle I am assigned was historically done where the chief of police received a new vehicle every year, and that vehicle was then rotated into the fleet of marked cars, and there was no unmarked car. There was a vehicle that the town owned that was the town manager's take-home vehicle that when certain town managers came in, they chose not to have it. I don't know why Ms. Stevens didn't like the 19 gosh knows when Ford Escape that was as bad as the air conditioner worked on
They
occasion.
tried to give me the 1999 Public Works truck.
And she didn't want that either. So what happens?
Classic.
So what happens is I look at, we're driving for a plain vehicle for investigative purposes. We were driving a white Ford Explorer that says police on it, whether it says police on it or not. And so when the last time we rotated that out, I put it in the investigator / and lieutenant spot to do it because they can get more longevity out of that because they don't, it shouldn't be on the road and it shouldn't have as much wear and tear on it. There's not as many drivers consistently every day using that vehicle. So, I mean, I look at it this way. If I get in Mr. Vishlik's car, it's probably pretty clean and pretty nice, and it can be 4 years old. If I go to get into a yellow cab that's the same age, it may look a little different and ride a little different. That's kind of like our cars here. So what I did was I changed the rotation the way it was, and the chief's car, that's for lack of a better term, the plain car that's assigned to me, I keep a minimum of 3 years. It's usually about 12,000 miles a year. That rotates out to that white car that the lieutenants have, and depending upon how many mileage that has on it, the goal was eventually that would rotate out to the building official's car because they're built differently than the patrol car. They're not the stripped down plastic seat, no console car. They're what they call an executive interior, which means that it's got carpeting and a center console. That's about all you get different. I don't buy them with the spotlight on it, so we don't stand like a sore thumb. You'll notice I bought a different color. I did that on purpose. That's so that we could put a regular tag on it and not look like the police if we need to use it for some other purpose. The rotation plan includes the town's building official vehicle by default, because that's how I set it up, unfortunately, when I said, hey, rather than making you pay for a car for the building official, why don't you take this, and then when we rotate through, there's a progression. The patrol cars get rotated out. One of them gets rotated to what we call a spare, which is the highest mileage car in case we need it. We used it, for example, to park on the side of Boynton Public on Memorial Day weekend as a, we call them Easter eggs. You see them in a lot of other communities. We use it for that. We use it for officers that have to go to court that are riding with somebody else. We use it when we need to do roadblocks. We used it last night for the incident that we were playing with last night. In all likelihood, if what I'm hearing today, we'll probably be using it tonight. We used the building official's vehicle last night, and we used that 1999 Ford pickup truck because we didn't want to take the real nice one out. So there's a method to the madness of rotation, which is more important than I think what people understand in a small fleet. To try and maintain minimal repair cost. I know Mr. Rishuk is familiar with motorcycles and engines, and as they age out, especially when you drive them, multiple drivers, we drive these cars probably 10 times longer every day than you do your personal car, just because of the engine wear on and what we do. It's important that we continue to maintain that so that we're not behind the 8 ball and don't have 2 or 3 of them down, and we can continue to provide the level of service that you want. That's the biggest push behind this. We wash them all the time. The support group pays to have them washed because we want to keep them as long as we can.
Sure. Now, it looks like one has been assigned to the community police officers.
So that is the Charger at this point in time,
That's the Charger.
okay?
Okay.
When that goes away, it will be one of the line cars or the spare vehicle or whatever we have available.
Would it be possible to get a quote for leasing? I understand that you're not a fan of it.
Yes,
I would love to have an actual quote that when we really have to put the nuts and bolts to this, that we have that information and can compare it and justify spending $50,000
sure,
by saying, this was the alternative.
of course. If you wish to go down the road of leasing, that's fine.
I believe that should be an option
Okay.
on the table.
That's fine.
You know, and at some point, we may want to consider pulling the building official car out of, it'll still be part of your fleet, but I mean, having a line item that's very different, because that really honestly should be going back to his portion in the budget.
It is, I agree with you.
Well, it does.
And it
If
does.
you're talking about repair and maintenance, that's in the building department's budget. But
If-
we're talking about an overall fleet here for
Right.
the town.
So if you
So
wanted,
your overall fleet has your police cars, your building, and your public works.
Owned by the town.
so if you wanted to separate it out by program, you could. And here's what we would tell you, okay? The town of Ocean Ridge is purchasing one new vehicle for $50,000. That's an estimate because I can't give you a price. Ford was not giving prices. They were skyrocketed in the beginning of the year. They've since come down considerably. So that was a ballpark figure, fully equipped police vehicle. I anticipate it will be closer to 40-some thousand. And if we can reuse stuff out of one of the cars, we will, obviously. So what I think you're saying is that if you wanted to look at it by program, when we gave the car that we were getting rid of to the building official, you would give me a $20,000 credit, and you would charge his group for 20, so the overall cost of that vehicle to the police department would not be 20,000 because the building official needs to pay for one. And then when the building official's car got traded in, you could assign that money. And I know it doesn't work this way in government financing. It doesn't come back in the thing, but if you want to look at it from your personal finance perspective, it comes back to the town. The town really then only spent $15,000 on the building official's car. You understand what I'm saying? The reality is, whatever we get for trade-ins and things like that, if it's a trade-in, we can see the money come off. And if it's a sale, it goes back into the general fund. We've done it both ways, and we look at, I mean, Tracy can tell you this, we've looked at it both ways. When we find it's advantageous for us to trade the car to the dealer and get a higher trade-in price, and we can on gov deals or try and get it ourselves, we do that. When we think that we can get a better price by selling it outright ourselves somehow, then we do that. We try and get the biggest bang for the buck. So
How much do we usually get back on these things?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I think it's been between $10,000 and $20,000.
That much?
There is a market for used police cars for very small rural agencies. You know, we sold outright a car that you and I would never drive to a small place in Georgia. And they were more than happy to have it because they had 5 of them broken down and all the parts to fix it. And they had no tax base. It was a paper mill town. They'd shut down, and literally they were scraping it together and called and said, if you'll take $5,000 for that, we will. We're more than happy to come get it. And it was like, okay, come get it. So.
This is a very important discussion, but could we order a pizza? We're not getting out of here.
We're not getting out of here alive?
You-
What?
Haven't looked.
Am I
Huh?
getting out of here? What?
Say what?
It's 5:15.
It is, I didn't know.
Meeting starts at 6. Just something like that. Thank you. So let's look at a leasing quote. I mean,
Yeah, why
this
not?
is,
Can't hurt.
it can't hurt,
hurt.
especially for the vehicles that we don't have to trick out with all the accoutrements in it. I eventually would like to see potentially the building official car carved out, just so we have apples and apples. May I finish? The other thing I'd like to take a look at is for 5, I understand the need and the desire to have additional cars available. If there's only 3 that are utilized of 5 on a continuous basis, so we got 2 spares. I get it for the shop, I get it for overflow, stuff like that. There just needs to be, and it just, you may be able to tell me at another time that it can't be done because of the scheduling, the way that the scheduling works, it overloads.
In a 24-hour period,
You change them up.
we use 6 cars a day, period. We use more cars a day than we have in a 24-hour period. So if you're looking at it from a 24-hour period on a weekend, in that 24-hour period, from 7 p.m. to 7 p.m. the next day, we use 6 vehicles on the road, okay? If there is a lieutenant, an investigator, a community police officer, or if we have any other need for something else, we use a considerable amount more than that. And especially during events, let's just say, let's call them events, like hurricanes or the party we had last night. We have less cars than we truly need for that. There are 5 entrance points to the town of Ocean Ridge. If we go to curfew or lockdown, I need 5 vehicles to man those locations. Okay?
Now you're speaking my language.
There you
I
go.
mean,
That's
I
what-
just,
yeah, she-
I think, I'm
This
sorry,
is all very
I'm sorry,
intuitive
maybe,
to you.
and I'm sorry, it just dawned on me that you're talking about 3 cars a day.
Right.
Okay, so last night alone, okay, we used every vehicle plus the building department's vehicle and the pickup truck to make sure that we could reasonably deploy our people, and I don't want to get into tactical situation, reasonably deploy our people to where I felt, and from what I'm getting back from the citizens, they felt safe. Whether it looked like overkill or not, the reality is we had to be able to be prepared to do certain things at a moment's notice, and without having that many vehicles, we would have been hogtied. During a hurricane, if we have to shut down 5 entry points, which is what we have, I need to have 5 cars. Yes, they do not have to be 5 brand new cars. So that old one sitting out there that's in reserve that we keep up can sit there until September when our hurricane comes, and then we may run the living daylights out of it. And the other problem is that when we do that, we tax the whole fleet to the max. And if we don't have that in the middle of the crisis time, we don't have any backups, and with all due respect, we have very little place to go get them. You understand? I mean, we can call in resources. So it's kind of planned out that way. I try not to use the maintenance truck like we used to all the time before we had as many cars as we do. When we had 5 cars in the chief's car, we were using the 2 maintenance trucks just like they were patrol vehicles many days. I don't think that's good for the maintenance trucks because we need them to be able to go do things. And yeah, if tropical floods or Woolbright Bridge floods and we have to go get you, we have the availability because we can take that big truck and come get you. I'm not saying we won't, but I don't want to use it as and we have done that many times, rescued residents with them. Maybe I'm not communicating properly, but yes, we use more than 3 cars every day.
Right.
Okay? And maybe that's what you weren't understanding, I don't know. As far as leasing, when I get a quote for a lease, the intention was to replace a marked police vehicle, so it will likely be a fully equipped vehicle for lease. That's how the leasing companies do it. Rather than, they'll put it together for us. We'll pay the premium for them to put it together for us because it's their car and their equipment. The only thing that they likely do is they'll put a computer mount in it. They may allow us to put a specific modem in it and our own radio, but we'll tell them how it's laid out. They'll put the stuff in it and then they lease it to you fully. If it were an unmarked vehicle, that may be a different case.
Okay, let's just take a look.
Oh yeah, Bancorp does this every day.
Yeah, let's take a look. Why not? Can't hurt, right?
Can't hurt.
And we had a discussion, probably half a year ago. We talked about it briefly. Tesla has not done anything as
So I will be more than happy to explore a hybrid police vehicle for you, a Ford Explorer hybrid, if that's what you like. Tesla does not have a police vehicle in their fleet, and electric vehicles come with the inherent problem of having to stop and charge them. And so I don't know what their service ratings are. I do know that Tesla vehicles did not like Woolbright Bridge flooding, and I know that Teslas didn't like the 5900 flooding the other day, according to the ones we pushed out. I don't know whether that was that vehicle or,
That must have been a vehicle, because I went through that thing full speed.
you understand what I'm saying? So my problem with going full electric is this: if you put a car on the road for 12 hours and Tesla can drive for whatever for that period of time without having to charge, I still don't have the ability to hot, what we call hot seating it.
Well, we could potentially, there's a potential to go hybrid at least.
I was not comfortable last year. This year, the Ford Interceptor hybrid has been rated well. I've looked at some of the other cities around the country at your and Mr. Bessler's request. They're getting good reviews. If you want to test one, we can do that test. It's supposedly a 40% savings in fuel. I don't like to buy
Let's-
anything. I don't like to buy anything in the first year.
Okay, so let's price it out, because that will come down to, unfortunately, as environmentally sound and moving in a better direction that we would all like to be. Maybe in a tight budget year, it may not be, if there's a big uptick on it, it may not be a fiscally responsible thing.
Because of this.
So
Correct.
they have traditionally been a little more pricey than.
Okay, well,
That's what I would think.
let's just see what it is. All right, thank you. We are moving on to number 11, maintenance of town hall facility. Is this money that we want to spend, or is this more?
No, this is a savings of your 5-year capital plan.
Right.
So this is moving toward, if we need a new roof on town hall, we have the money to pay for it. If we need to
Thank you,
paint the
Chief.
building, we have the money for it.
Okay. All right.
It's basically funding, future funding.
Future
Correct.
projects
Future
that when it
projects.
comes, it comes.
It's future planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's planning to, it's part of your 5-year capital.
And the overall $90,000, is that a sufficient amount to have a new roof and the place painted?
For both at the same time, no.
No.
How old is the paint on the outside?
Since 2008, it's never been painted.
And do we
Paint on the outside.
do we routinely
It's amazing.
do maintenance on the outside and spray it down to get some of the salt water off? And
We haven't recently that I know of.
Probably if we started now, then it would be time to
we'll
paint.
pull the paint
Yes,
off.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what you do before you repaint.
Yeah.
Maybe when we repaint, we could look at the proactivity there,
Right.
the mold and what have you.
Okay, because with a lot of these, to Vice Mayor's point, I just need to know if we're pushing the pause button, obviously we're continuing to kick the can down the road, but if
Correct.
the 90,000 doesn't even cover, isn't the entire nut, then I don't understand how a reduction, it's gonna happen at one point
Right.
anyways.
And the roof is such a priority. When it happens, it happens.
Right.
And have we had our roof inspected anytime lately?
I know we're having problems with our roof in the Coppola area of Town Hall. We have
Constant.
major leaks in that.
But aren't we just, we're taking these $20,000 and we're not utilizing it.
No,
There's no immediate
No.
plan to utilize it. So
Correct.
we're taking the $20,000 technically out of our savings, because we have $800,000 shortfall. So we're taking it out of our savings and putting it into our savings.
Correct,
No sense whatsoever.
Well, it's like earmarking.
yeah.
it's earmarking it
We're
into the
earmarking.
capital.
Technically,
So-
Earmarking, so that we don't look at it in another way.
So Commissioner, what has happened in the past is, and I see what you're saying, what has happened in the past is there has not been an appetite to reserve any monies for anything, and the town has been in a constant catch-up situation when things break, whether it's the hydrant or the pump or the anything. So we're just saying, and I was one that pushed very strongly for a 5-year capital plan to say, what is it that we haven't been doing, or we may have to have happen? So yes, we're taking it from one account to the other, but we're earmarking it and saying very specifically, we're creating our own savings account
Right,
for it.
because that project will come. And when it comes, then we don't have to empty what we have. What if if 3 of them came at once? We'd
What
really
I'm
have.
saying is, we're not expending that money.
Correct.
So technically, that money is not lost or it doesn't. really
No, but
come
being
out of the
earmarked is
budget.
being
We're
earmark's a
just
good thing.
Moving it to where we
Right,
will
right.
eventually need it.
And then doesn't get
In
touched
the
for any
capital
other
fund.
project.
Gone, it's not spent.
Right, no,
Correct,
exactly right.
correct, and that's,
Exactly.
If we're not paying this, we're saving something, we're just.
Right, it's ready when we
don't
need
have
it.
it in the right place when we need it.
correct,
Exactly.
got it.
Well, but we are showing it as a budget item, so therefore we're seeing that what we have to pull out of reserves, so that we don't spend it on something else that maybe
Right.
if we knew we weren't gonna have the money in the future, we wouldn't have spent that item. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
More like a full disclosure, because you are gonna have to pay it, it is gonna be an expense down the road someday.
Yeah, so either you're saving these $20,000 for the next 5 years every year, or at one point, this might come this year, this might come 5 years from now, we're gonna have $100,000
Well,
repair.
it's sort of,
Yeah.
Which
right,
we
but
know
it's
is
sort of like the
coming.
hydrant issue, right? You know, as commissioners, we really didn't know what was going on, and all of a sudden, this $300,000 hydrant bill hit, or whatever the number was. Where now we were predicting it, putting it to the side, and then when it hits us, we know, well, we already predicted it, and we gotta pay the
Right. No
piper.
And now the money's sitting in the capital fund, so it doesn't have to be. you
For
know,
that
it's-
purpose.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of more of like not being surprised by it, kind of know them ahead of time.
Right.
And it's earmarked
I think that's what-
specifically
Mhm.
for that purpose.
Yes.
Exactly.
So it's not something that can be then taken so that.
Touch
you
for
know,
something
we're
else,
gonna-
yeah.
we're
Have a
gonna
pizza
buy
party.
a new air conditioning unit.
What?
Have a pizza party.
The town,
I'm obviously
the town
hungry.
commission
It's not,
Can change.
we're so,
could change it.
Right.
right, Tracy, you can shuffle it back if.
Right.
Yes.
That's what
for
she
whatever
just said.
reason,
Yeah.
We needed $100,000 to paint it,
Yeah.
and got it painted for $50,000, you could move the 50 back into general fund.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. I was saying that it's up to the town commission to make that decision, though. It's not something I, as a town manager, could do. It would have to be a decision of the town commission.
Right.
Yeah, it's just-
To move funds, just like now.
All right, number 12, beach crossover repairs. So is this $15,000 for all 3? Is it 15,000 per? Where do we stand on this?
It depends on the quotes we get and what exactly is needed. So this is going to be more than likely just one, depending, you know, if you go and look at the disrepair on some of our crossovers right now, this 15,000 could be on one crossover.
How much did we spend on the Anna crossover rebuild? Do you have that number?
It was about
Yes.
10,000.
20?
It was
10,000.
10,000?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad. That's cheap for that crossover. That was a lot of work.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, and again, yeah, it's commendable, and again, I'd like to look at what, you know, what can be done in-house.
What can be done.
Yeah, we always, and we will,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The roller path.
And I guess one of the things, I mean, do all 3 need some level of work right now, or?
All
Absolutely.
3 need it, yeah.
Absolutely.
The major issue that I see on these crossovers, from personal, looking at them, is all the decking
Mhm.
that you have is so old that the wood starts splitting, it starts warping. There's screws that are coming out.
Right.
There's broken off wood pieces. It's a tripping hazard.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
liability issue.
It becomes a huge liability
so.
issue, and I'm always a little bit worried about, you know, somebody tripping down those stairs, and then we're facing insurance
Right.
issues goes up. And
Are we looking at using different materials rather than wood? Obviously, wood, even treated wood, is not,
I mean, on some of the areas, like the Beachway crossover, we went from wood to a sandy path.
That's right.
So it's gonna
Mhm.
depend on the configuration of the crossover itself, whether we're able to do
Right.
that or not, but yes.
also with it at McCormick Mow, when we redid, we did not use wood, we used a wood composite.
Right.
Right.
And it has, I mean, knock wood, we're still 10 years in, it looks like it was put in yesterday.
Like you
Yeah.
said, it's the configuration, how it has
Mhm.
to be built, and then
Right.
you look at your materials.
Right.
So it's all open, right? There-
Okay. Well, again, I mean, the beaches are why we all live here, so there's,
And
I
safety.
don't think there's a
It's a
decision.
safety issue, too.
Safety, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And last but not least, septic to sewer, unknown cost. So the idea here was whether or not to continue to restrict the 1 cent sales tax for this budget, this next budget cycle coming up, to be earmarked for septic to sewer needs. And typically, that's gonna be, what was the line item, $92,000
For revenues, yes.
for revenues,
Mhm.
for the 1 cent sales tax. So the question is, are we gonna take that 1 cent sales tax as concurred and voted on by the last commission of $92,000 and keep it earmarked? Same darn
I know,
account,
I
but
know.
earmarked.
And Mayor, that's 92,000 this year, and then we also had monies already in that account, so we're earmarking the whole thing.
Correct. I would not be comfortable unearmarking what has already been earmarked. I don't think that is at least not my desire. My desire would be is looking, going forward, in such a tight year, obviously $92,000 is a lot of money, and do we need it in the septic to sewer? Absolutely, but do we need it more for a vehicle and a crossover?
Earmarking less, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying taking a flotation, or taking a break, taking a hiatus, and saying, for this next year coming up, rather than putting all the funds for this 1 cent sales tax into this restricted fund, that it becomes part of the general
All of it?
revenue.
All of it? Are you suggesting all of it?
$92,000 would go a long way in helping us.
So what else you have to look at is, when you're looking at exploring your septic to sewer, you have expenditures for, say, Raftellus to go and do our rate studies, and then you also have the grant funding as well. So if you wanted us to go ahead in the next fiscal year and pay Raftellus to start doing our rate study, or if you wanted to pay Ryan Ruske to do some research on grant funding for us, we would need to put an expenditure line here to do that. If you don't put any expenditure line item here, we can't do that in the next fiscal year.
What is the balance of what we have in this little fund that we've set up?
I think it's like 350-ish.
So you couldn't pay in an upcoming fiscal year expenses from a fund that you're holding from a past year?
we could tap into the 350 is basically the question.
You could, but you have to show that
As an
here.
expenditure.
Right.
But my thought is, could we consider shaving and not say the entire, still put something in there this year? You know, instead of maybe putting, if you're loath to put the entire 1 cent distribution in there, because I still think it's a project that I'd like to be ahead of, and it's coming, that maybe shaving the amount. Would that be more comfortable? Just floating it out there.
Because we've got plenty of projects that we could apply it against.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know that,
It has to be used for infrastructure.
right?
Oh,
And
we got
plenty of that.
enough of that.
It has to qualify.
Right,
Yeah.
we got, I don't think that's a problem, but
Nope.
would you consider, would you all consider, Phil, would you consider not ditching it completely this year, is still putting a portion of it in the septic to sewer account, earmarking it for septic to sewer.
Phil?
Oh, I'm sorry, did you ask me that? You kind of broke up. Was it earmarked in half? Is that what?
Yeah, well, what my suggestion was, instead of earmarking the entire, because I'm getting a feeling here, because we can use our money elsewhere, that possibly instead of earmarking the entire amount, is possibly earmarking still at least a portion of it to put into the septic to sewer.
Yeah, I mean, I see this still as kind of a preliminary budget, so if you wanted to do half, I mean, we're still gonna have another shot at it.
Right.
Because, yeah, I'm writing all these things down. We've got a lot of soft areas, like whether we get the police vehicle.
Correct.
Whether we get a used public truck, whether the pump station's $100,000 or $150,000, and the Luthera's could be 0 or $100K. You know, this budget is still
Flexible.
being where we're gonna be, you know what I mean? So if you wanna just, you know, for this conversation, earmark half, I think that's fine. And then we'll have another one in July, get it fine-tuned soon.
Right. We'll get some more detail on some of the requests that we've made.
So when you're
Right, but
talking,
at least put a number in there so that we're seriously considering earmarking something. And if things go good, we can always up it, and if it goes bad, we can get rid of it or just stay at the half.
so on the revenue side, you already have the 92,000 in there. What you need to do, if you wanted to only earmark half, you would have to do that in a regular town commission meeting and kind of undo what you've already done, because you've already decided to earmark
The
those
1
funds
cent.
for that.
So
So you would have to,
we'd have to, so if, well, let's say we'll follow along your suggestion, my compromise, Phil's thought. So by the next budget meeting, we might have some different numbers coming in on different situations. And at that point, we could have the discussion again about the amount earmarked. And if we decide we were going to change it, we could do that at the following commission meeting?
yes,
How does that sound?
certainly.
I just want to make sure
certainly,
our timing works.
Right, that's why I'm asking.
but- And that's,
exactly right.
but that's the revenue side of it.
Right.
This is the expenditure side of that.
Mhm.
So do you want to spend any money on the grants or on the rate study this coming fiscal year? That's a decision you have to make.
What's our,
Well, the grants we had already set in, it was $3,500. It wasn't a very large budget
Right.
number.
Right.
And I think it's premature for Raffatellis to be doing numbers, but I mean, is that 10,000?
Yeah,
Is
what-
it 20? Is
any
it?
idea what the?
Yeah, you guys are still breaking up a little. I only hear half of what you're saying.
Yeah, I thought it was about 40,000.
We were talking
Draft
about
us.
the expenditure side here, of what we would discuss now
But yeah,
about,
I heard Tracy fine about the grants. and
oh yeah, we were just asking what those amounts might be. So the grant we said was approximately 2,500, and now we're asking what the study would be.
And the grant is,
Sorry, Raftellus,
Yeah.
sewer conversion, financial consultant, 30.
but that was what the town commission decided they were going to spend. It wasn't based on what Raftellus said the cost was gonna be. The town
Oh.
commission capped it,
Right, we capped it at spending 30.
right?
Rightfully so.
Have we spent anything?
No.
No.
No,
No.
we haven't. No, we
It's
haven't.
budgeted in the year that we're sitting in now. If we don't expend it, it's going back into reserves.
Okay, so if we're talking about, just for the sake of discussion, say, cutting it in half, the amount, 50% of the 1 cent tax to earmark, if we did that, we'd be good on our expenditure side, if we stuck with only 60 projects this year, right? 40-ish?
But what I'm saying is, right now, the expenditure side of it is zero. It's blank here.
Right, but we're
Yeah.
thinking, we're talking about what we would make the expenditure side.
Right.
Any comfort zone there? I'm looking over here. Any comfort zone on expenditure side?
Do you think we should ask that though? And in this sense is because of this virus and stuff, are they, you know, are septic give us that answer, I think.
That would be Ryan.
Right, and a price for the study. We said how, right, so we could talk about, well, we already said we would cap it anyway, the 30,000, correct?
Do we have a scheduled septic to sewer meeting
Yes.
coming up?
Yes.
So maybe we should address with the septic and sewer committee.
See what they're, let them weigh in on
Where
it.
they want to go at this point, because I don't think that we are quite ready for that financial consulting. That is my understanding, and I might be entirely wrong.
So the question for them would be, are you going to be ready within a year and a half? Because that's what this budget.
Correct.
Would cover.
Let them give us an idea as to where
Sure.
they stand at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit hesitant cutting that funding, because I think it's an item that is
I agree.
of extreme importance, but I also
They all
share
are.
your, frustration, and, we need to make cuts, and
So let's get some input from Septic to Sewer Conversion Committee.
let them tell us where they stand and where they would like to see it.
Yeah, they're meeting next week, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's
That sounds good.
that's a good concept. Do you understand, did you hear that, Phil?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else in regards to the budget that Commissioner Vishalak, that you would like to bring up at this point? Commissioner Hurlbert?
No.
Commissioner Bessler?
I'm fine. Are we gonna have our 6 o'clock meeting, I guess, on time?
Yes. Yes, we will have it on time.
Go eat quickly. Okay, meeting is now adjourned at 5:40.
Oh, good Lord.